Chapter 66, On the Way Back, 3. Are they still watching us, Bella? Daichi asked, and after a few moments, Bella frantically nodded her head like a child. Daichi almost groaned, but before getting frustrated, he needed to deal with a bunch of stalkers. This was getting troublesome, but he didn't regret his decision. It was a necessary risk for the growth of their group, and if he needed to survive, then his group needed to grow. Bella, can you hide the car with your magic? Daichi asked in a hopeful tone. Bella's spells were extremely versatile, and there were a lot of things she could do with magic. There was a spell for almost everything. You mean this whole contraption, milord? Bella asked while waving her hands at the car, and after getting a nod from Daichi, Bella also nodded her head excitedly. Bella raised her hand with a huge grin on her face, and then all of a sudden, she froze and turned toward the building where she had sensed the people who were watching them. They left, milord, Bella revealed as she slowly turned toward Daichi. Daichi's eyebrow twitched. What the fuck was even happening? Nearly half an hour ago he did become a social media celebrity, so maybe it had something to do with that. Then it is fine, Bella. Inform me if you notice something again, Daichi said, and after getting a sullen nod from Bella, he decided to resume the video. He had been watching the video, but when Bella told him that someone was watching them, Daichi had to pause the video so he could deal with the stalker problem. Now that the stalker problem was dealt with, he was free to do whatever he wanted. In this case, watch his first viral video. He already had 3.7 million views on his first video, and the number was still going up. He started to wonder how many views he was going to get in his second video. Any streamers or YouTubers would have been jealous of him if the world was still normal. It took Daichi another 15 minutes to watch the rest of the video. To be honest, Daichi was quite impressed with Giselle's skill. Obviously, he had seen better streamers and YouTubers, but all of them were quite experienced. Meanwhile, Giselle was a simple Instagram influencer, and there was no way that Daichi could have done the recording better than Giselle. Daichi turned toward Giselle, who was staring at him expectantly. Daichi grinned and returned his phone to Giselle. Giselle beamed at Daichi with a bright smile on her face, and without wasting any time, she jumped into his arms, and then she wrapped her arms around him to give him a tight hug. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Giselle continued to mumble as she kept hugging Daichi. Daichi did not have any idea that it was such an important thing for her. Daichi realized that different people have different types of dreams, and he shouldn't look down on anyone's dream. After a whole minute, Giselle finally released Daichi. Don't worry, you were perfect for the job, but you know the risks, right? Daichi asked, and after getting a nod from Giselle, Daichi started to smile wryly. Don't worry, if you get hurt then it means that we are a failure as a hunting team, Daichi said as he gestured toward everyone in the car beside Giselle. Giselle looked at Daichi in confusion. She did not understand what Daichi was saying. You see, you are going to be at the back, and if you get hurt it means that our enemy was able to get past all of us. That is not something to be ashamed of from our perspective, Daichi explained, and Giselle finally understood what Daichi was trying to say. Now that Daichi was done with Giselle, he turned toward Kane and ran. They looked really nervous before they started the hunt. So, how are the two of you feeling? Daichi asked with a grin, and Kane barely held back from saying something stupid. First of all, she wasn't happy that she had to fight against so many zombies, but at the same time, she was completely awed at Daichi and the rest of his team. They were simply badass, especially Siko-san. After all, Siko was Kane's idol. She was also awed by the fact that she was able to kill so many zombies. She has killed a lot of zombies, but she had never tried to fight against such a large group. There was something Kane realized during the fight, if she could even call it a fight. It was a one-sided slaughter. Daichi and his group could have easily dealt with the horde even without her and Ran's help. They were simply involving the two of them in the team thing. Until now, Daichi haven't asked anything cruel or impossible from them, but there was nothing stopping him from doing that, not that she could do anything if Daichi asked for something impossible or immoral. After all, he was way stronger than her. I still can't believe that I killed so many of them. Before Kane could say anything, Ran spoke up in a disbelieving tone. He looked at his own hands with a silly smile on his face. How many points did you earn? Daichi asked curiously. I earned 31 points, Ran said while laughing sheepishly as he started to rub the back of his head. 31 points were quite a lot now that Daichi was receiving any status points even after killing a level 1 enemy. Alas, there was not much Daichi could do in his current condition. First of all, Daichi knew that the Mana Archive was responsible for giving them powers and all of that, but he did not know if the Mana Archive was responsible for the awakening of mana or not, so he was going to hold his judgment, for the time being. According to the message from Mana Archive at the beginning of the apocalypse, Mana awakened on Earth on its own. From his mom, Daichi also knew that Mana was always present on this planet, but it wasn't active until now. There were several incidents here and there, which were called anomalies, but they were isolated incidents. According to the message from the Mana Archive, it was helping the inhabitants of this planet to get used to the mana and become strong in the process. Good, Daichi muttered with a satisfied nod, and then he turned toward Kane. The said girl immediately understood what he wanted from her. I earned 38 points, Kane answered with a small smile on her face. Good. Do you guys know how to reach level 2? Daichi asked, and both of them immediately shook their heads in denial. As soon as all of your physical parameters reach the sum of 200, you will be able to reach level 2, but at the same time, it is not that easy. You will need a job if you want to reach level 2. As soon as the sum of your physical parameters reaches 200, the Mana Archive will analyze you and your fighting style to give you a couple of job options. The better your job is, the harder your job requirements are going to be. After you finally finish your job requirements, you will get the job you have selected and you will be able to reach level 2. Daichi explained, and Kane and Ran could only stare at Daichi with wide eyes. The two of them had several questions in their minds, but before they could ask him anything, Roberta spoke up from the front. Daichi-sama, we are already here, Roberta called out in a monotone, and Daichi released a tired and relieved sigh. He knew that Kane, Ran, and Kota must have a lot of questions in their minds after hearing his explanation, and he also needed to explain everything to Anthony and Giselle too. Roberta already knew what she had to do if she wanted to level up, so he didn't call her out. Let's go inside, after that, we will be able to freely talk, and there are the others too who need to know the things I am talking about, Daichi said, looking back at Kane, Ran, and Kota. They nodded their heads in understanding. After parking the car, Daichi checked if all the fire trucks were there were not, or if there would have been hell to pay. After he was done, he nodded his head in satisfaction, and then he made his way inside Rika Minami's house along with the others. He noticed that two from Anthony's group were keeping an eye on the streets. As soon as Daichi entered the house, he found himself in the arms of his mom. He smiled and hugged her back. Son, you looked so dashing on the video. I am sure that so many women are going to be head over heels for you, Kimona said, and started to cackle in mad glee. Don't worry, son. I will not let any hussies or gold diggers be anywhere near you, Kimona vowed inside her mind. She had killed women for the same thing even when the world was completely normal, and now that there were no laws binding her, she was free to do anything she wanted. Chapter 67, Your enemies are my enemies, I. After Daichi was done explaining the mechanics of reaching level 2 to everyone, he decided to have a private chat with his mom. There were some things he needed to discuss before he could reveal his address to the rest of the country. Daichi knew that he was being extra cautious, but being cautious never hurt anyone. Daichi also knew that his mom has deserted the government, so there was a chance that some petty officer might try something. But before he could head upstairs with his mom, he needed to inform Chiba about the plan. So, he told Siko to pass a message to the woman. It is going to happen after midnight, be ready, that was the message Daichi wanted Siko to pass over to Chiba. Since Daichi had already talked with Chiba in the morning, he knew that she would get the short and extremely cryptic message. Siko didn't know what it was about, but she wasn't going to question Daichi, so after giving his an understanding nod, she walked away. After that, without wasting any more time, Daichi arrived in his room followed by his mom, Bella, Roberta, and Kyoko. Kimona did not know why Daichi wanted Kyoko to be here, but she wasn't going to complain. After all, she knew that Kyoko was loyal to her son and Daichi also wanted her around him. Since my son wants her here, who am I to complain? Kimona shrugged while grinning fondly. At least, Kyoko knew her place in the hierarchy. Bella, can you cast those privacy spells in the room? Daichi asked, and Bella didn't need to be told twice. Bella flicked her hand, and after a couple of moments, she beamed at Daichi. Daichi did not have any way of knowing if the spell worked or not, but he trusted Bella, so he nodded in satisfaction. Bella, give me the stone, Daichi said, and at first, Bella did not understand what Daichi was talking about, so she simply inclined her head in confusion. After a few moments, Bella finally realized what Daichi was talking about. Bella snapped her fingers in realization. Of course, milord. Bella exclaimed excitedly as she pulled out her huge purse from her pockets. Meanwhile, the other women inside the room gaped at Bella. They started to wonder how Bella was able to keep that huge purse inside her pocket without having it sticking out, and at the same time, they were also confused about the stone. Bella rummaged through her purse as she scrunched her face in concentration. After a few moments, her face finally brightened up and she pulled out a glowing stone from her purse. "Here it is, milord." Bella presented the mana stone to Daichi with a respectful bow of her head. Daichi simply released a tired sigh as he accepted the mana stone from Bella. "You know, you don't need to bow your head all the time. I won't be displeased with you," Daichi said in a tired tone, but from the look on Bella's face, it was highly unlikely that Bella was going to change her habits. Once again, Daichi sighed before he turned toward his mom, Roberta, and Kyoko. "This is a mana stone. This is something that forms somewhere around the large reserves of fossil fuels. I found this in the gas station," Daichi explained with a grin. "Daichi-sama, what does this mana stone do?" Roberta asked with an unsure look on her face. Instead of directly answering her question, Daichi tossed the mana stone toward Roberta. The maid nimbly caught the mana stone without any problems. Moments later, realization dawned on Roberta's face. "Daichi-sama, this thing can permanently increase the mana reserve of a person according to a person's level," Roberta explained excitedly. Kyoko gasped in shock while Kimona's eyes started to shine in greed and excitement. "Daichi-sama, are you sure that I should use this?" The excitement on Roberta's face disappeared as she questioned Daichi in a worried tone. "I have already used it along with Bella and Siko and I want you to use it, that is why I gave it to you." Daichi shrugged. Roberta started to grin from ear to ear and moments later, the mana stone started to glow, which meant that Roberta has already started to absorb mana. "This is quite a nifty thing you found, son. This is going to be quite useful," Kimona blurted out, her voice filled with excitement. Kimona was barely holding herself back from snatching the stone from Roberta's hands. Kimona cared about Roberta and the purple-haired woman had served her well, so she was fine with Roberta using the stone before her. After all, Roberta would use her strength to serve Daichi. Kimona respected power before anything else, so it was obvious that she also wanted to absorb the stone's power. "Roberta-chan, there is a limit to how much you can absorb. The mana archive will give you a warning, please stop when the warning appears," Daichi warned Roberta. Even though Roberta was grinning like a madwoman while absorbing the power, she still nodded her head in understanding. "Oh. How much mana can we absorb?" Kimona asked curiously as she turned her son. "It is different for everyone. I was able to absorb 4,700 mana while Siko was only able to absorb 360 mana, and Bella was able to absorb 2,000 mana," Daichi explained. "From what I have deduced, it depends on a person's talent and body constitution," Daichi added and Kimona nodded her head in understanding. Daichi-kun, why didn't you show it to the others?" Kyoko asked nervously and before Kimona could give a snarky reply, Daichi decided to answer Kyoko. "Because all of you are special to me. Did you think that I am not going to play favorites?" Daichi asked and Kyoko's heart fluttered when she heard that she was someone special to Daichi, but she did not know how to answer the second question. "It is obvious that I favor all of you because I can trust you guys blindly," Daichi smiled softly as he answered his own question when he noticed that Kyoko wasn't going to answer. "Aw. I love you too, son," Kimona grinned, revealing her large canines as she winked at her son. Daichi noticed that the mana stone finally stopped glowing, which meant that Roberta was done. Though he couldn't notice much difference in the stone. He remembered that the stone had dimmed after Bella had used it and the stone had also dimmed after he had used it, but after Roberta's use, there wasn't any noticeable difference. "Dake-sama, I am done," Roberta said as she handed over the mana stone to Kimona, who was eagerly waiting to give it a go. Without wasting any time Kimona started to absorb mana from the stone and that is when someone knocked at the door. Daichi gestured Bella to check who was at the door, but before she could reach the door, Siko's voice was heard from the other side of the door. Bella's privacy spells were simply brilliant, her spells would stop any sounds from going out of the room while they could easily hear sounds from the outside. "You are alone, right?" Daichi asked, just to be sure. Yes, after getting Siko's confirmation, Daichi gestured Bella to get the door. As soon as the door was unlocked, Siko walked in with her usual smile on her face. She noticed the mana stone in Kimona's hands but she decided not to make any comments regarding the mana stone. "Did you pass on the message?" Daichi asked and Siko simply nodded her head. "Kane-san asked me to teach her kendo, and she wasn't alone. What do you think I should do?" Siko asked Daichi and he simply shrugged after hearing her question. "It is not my place to say anything. It is up to you. If you want to teach them, then I won't be stopping you," Daichi said dismissively. Siko nodded her head in understanding. Siko decided to accept the request, at least, the Kane and the others were trying to become stronger, instead of cowering in fear. She could respect that and her father would be proud of her if she helped them. Son, I am done too. Kimona exclaimed with a massive grin on her face, and then she tossed the mana stone toward Kyoko. Kyoko gaped in surprise, and after fumbling with the mana stone for a few moments, she was finally able to catch the stone. Kyoko placed one of her hands over her heart and released a relieved sigh as soon as the mana stone was secure. Go on, Kyoko, but remember the warning limit, Daichi reminded Kyoko with a serious look on his face, and after getting a determined nod from Kyoko, he nodded his head in satisfaction. Daichi also noticed that after his mom finished absorbing mana from the stone has become dimmer. Apparently, the stone has probably lost quite a bit of power. Daichi did not know how long the stone could be used, but he was going to use the stone to its fullest. Kyoko also started to absorb mana from the stone, and that is when Daichi decided to talk with his mom. Mom, there is something I wanted to talk about, Daichi said, and Kimona raised her brows in question. Mom, do you have any enemies? Daichi asked curiously. Kimona stared at her adoptive son with a blank look on her face. Moments later, she started to snicker, and then it turned into full-blown laughter. Daichi decided to patiently wait for his mom to calm down. It wasn't anything new for her. Son, I have a lot of enemies. That's why I changed my name when I decided to adopt you. I wanted to protect them from you, Kimona answered in an amused tone. Daichi nodded his head. Yes, I know that. You already told me. I am asking if you have any local enemies. Daichi asked, and Kimona rubbed her chin with a thoughtful look on her face. You could count Soichiro Takagi. Kimona muttered with an unsure look on her face, and after a couple of seconds, a dark look appeared on her face. Ah, I forget about those fucking insects, Kimona growled menacingly, and flames erupted from her hands. Chapter 68, Your Enemies Are My Enemies, 2. You could count Soichiro Takagi. Kimona muttered with an unsure look on her face, and after a couple of seconds, a dark look appeared on her face. Ah, I forgot about those fucking insects, Kimona growled menacingly, and flames erupted from her hands. Daichi simply raised his brows with a questioning look on his face. He had rarely seen his mom react like this. Calm down, Mom. I can't have you setting fire on everything, Daichi said with a chuckle, and Kimona quickly realized that her son was right, and the flames disappeared into thin air. Kimona gave Daichi an apologetic look. Ah, sorry, Kimona apologized as she shook her head. Daichi-kun, I am done, Kyoko called out when she was finally done absorbing mana from the stone. She returned the mana stone to Daichi with a grateful look on her face, and Daichi returned the mana stone to Bella for safekeeping. Daichi wanted to check Kyoko's, Roberta's, and his mom's improved stats, but before that, he needed to learn why his mom was so angry at these people. So, what did these people do to earn your ire? Daichi asked curiously. It must have been something serious for his mom to react in such a manner. Kimona took a deep breath and plopped down on the bed. Kyoko and Bella helped with the chairs. After everyone was seated, Kimona finally decided to speak up. From what I have learned, it is a secretive assassins group called the Black Label. I don't know the identities of the attackers, but I do know who was backing them. The chairman of the Mochizuki General Hospital is the man behind the creation of this Black Label group. I don't know his reasons or anything though, Kimona explained, and Daichi nodded his head in understanding. Even though Daichi looked completely calm on the outside, he was seething in anger on the inside. From the description, Daichi realized that this Black Label organization is an extremist vigilante group. They would assassinate anyone if they think that the said person is a threat to their society. Daichi didn't need to be a genius to realize that this Black Label group had tried to assassinate his mom, and that was something completely unacceptable for Daichi. Daichi knew that his mom was not a good person, but that did not mean that he was going to side with the Black Label and then brand his mom as a criminal. To be honest, Daichi did not care if his mom was good or bad, but since the Black Label had tried to assassinate his mom, he was going to destroy Black Label. Not a single person would be spared of his wrath. There was no right or wrong, it was only a matter of perspective. Everyone is a hero in their own story, and everyone is a villain in someone's story. The Black Label might have been heroes in the stories of a lot of people, but by trying to kill him mom, they have become a villain in his story. Kimona revealed that the chairman of the Mochizuki General Hospital was also the founder of the Black Label. Daichi knew that he could find some clues in the said hospital, and there was also a chance that the hospital was the base of the Black Label organization. Now that he thought about it, there was a good chance that the hospital was also the base of the Black Label organization. After all, the Black Label was a group of assassins, no matter how they want to paint themselves as heroes. They were bound to get injured, so if the hospital was also their base, then they would be able to get easy medical treatments. Now, Daichi did not know if he was right or wrong, but he decided to inspect the hospital as soon as possible. I see, so, did you find anything else about them? Daichi asked with a contemplative look on his face. Kimona shook her head in denial. I tracked down to the Mochizuki General Hospital before the trail went cold and I was told by the government to back up. I was this close to finding them. I would have ripped them apart with my bare hands if I found them, Kimona growled with a desperate glint in her eyes. So, this black label works with the government? Daichi asked curiously and Kimona simply shook her head in denial. No, as much as I know, they are not a part of the government, but they do have some connections or Mochizuki Masamune wouldn't have been able to call off the investigations. We knew we were this close when all the investigations were called off, Kimona snarled in anger. Daichi could understand his mom's frustration at the whole ordeal. If he was in his mom's shoes, then he would be feeling the same too. So, is there a chance that they are going to attack us? Daichi asked and Kimona simply shrugged. I don't know. They might be busy saving their own asses, or they could be biding their time, Kimona answered dismissively and Daichi nodded his head in understanding. Milord, then we should attack them before they could make a move. They have already attacked Bella's mother-in-law, which itself is a crime punishable by torture to death, Bella said eagerly with an excited glint in her eyes. Daichi gaped at Bella, and Kimona burst out laughing after hearing Bella's words. I like you, Bella. You have my blessings, Kimona laughed boisterously and Daichi simply released a tired sigh as he shook his head. Daichi cleared his head to get his mom's attention. When Kimona finally turned toward her son, he gestured toward everyone in the room. Everyone present in the room including Kimona had an intimate relationship with Daichi and it wasn't fair if his mom only gave blessings to Bella. Kimona realized what Daichi was trying to tell her through his eyes. Ah. Kimona nodded her head in understanding and then she looked around at everyone. Well, all of you have my blessings. Even you Kyoko, I know you love him so are fine with me, Kimona said with a grin. She especially pointed out Kyoko since the bespectacled woman looked saddened and when Kimona specifically pointed her out, a bright smile appeared on Kyoko's face. I am blessed, Daichi commented dryly, but everyone could easily notice the happiness in his voice. Coming back to the original topic, I believe Bella is right. It would be better if we attack them first before they could attack us, Daichi added and Bella eagerly nodded her head as she cheerfully clapped her hands. After all, murder and torture were her favorite hobbies. Daichi. I am really happy that you want to attack them for my sake, but I don't think now is the right time, Kimona quickly poured cold water on his plans. Bella immediately started to sulk while pouting. I know that too, I wasn't planning to attack them right now. We don't even have a stable base, Daichi sighed and Kimona nodded her head in satisfaction. Is this really necessary? Kyoko asked nervously and Daichi simply nodded his head. It might sound excessive, but people like them will come after mom again. They won't give up as long as my mom is breathing, Daichi answered with a serious look on his face. Yes, Daichi-kun is right, Siko also agreed with Daichi. So, what are you planning tonight? Siko asked curiously. We are going to help Chiba with her revenge, Daichi revealed. He decided not to reveal the fact that he was planning to kill them either way and Kyoko was also present. Kyoko wasn't like Roberta, Bella, Siko, or his mom so he did not know if she would understand or not. By the way, Bella, do you have any spells that could manipulate memories? Daichi asked and Bella tilted her head in confusion. Manipulate memories? Milord, do you want to remove memories or manipulate memories? Bella asked in a cute baby voice. Removing memories, Daichi answered without missing a beat. Bella does have a spell that could remove memories, Bella admitted and Daichi grinned in satisfaction. For now, he decided not to reveal his full plan for the night. Once again, Kyoko did not know what Kimona had done inside the shopping mall so he decided not to reveal the details. Daichi knew that if Kyoko decided to stay with him in the future then she would need to know and handle these types of things. Well, by that time, her mentality would have changed too. Mom, do you have any more enemies? Daichi asked and after thinking for a couple of minutes, she shook her head in denial. I do have enemies, but none of them would be able to reach me in the current condition of the world and I don't think any of my enemies would be able to recognize you as my son, Kimona revealed and Daichi nodded his head in understanding. I see. Now, that everything serious is taken care of, I want to take a bath, Daichi said as he slowly stood up from his seat. Ah. Are you not going to invite us? Kimona asked with a naughty grin on her face. Bella cheered loudly while Kyoko and Siko blushed, leaving Roberta, who was completely stoic. Daichi grinned slyly as he turned toward his mom. Who am I to stop all of you? As soon as Daichi finished, he entered the bathroom and all the girls rushed behind him without complaining. Chapter 69, Shadow Assassin, I. Even with Daichi's more than impressive stamina, Daichi knew that he could not handle all of his women in the same session, it was simply impossible. So, no matter much horny he was going to hold himself back. There was no way that Daichi was planning to die by exhaustion. According to Daichi, it was a really bad way to go. Yes, sure, he would die while having sex with his women, but therein lay the problem. Daichi did not want to die. He wanted to live and continue having sex with his beloved women. So, no matter how much his women tried to entice him, he did not give in to the temptations. He simply continued to relax inside the bathtub while watching his women from the corner of his eyes with a smile on his face. This is life, that is what Daichi was thinking at that moment. Nearly an hour later, everyone was finally done with their baths. So, after wiping the water from their bodies, everyone decided to leave after getting dressed. Roberta had to teach Bella how to wear modern clothes since they didn't find any robes in the clothing stores. Obviously, Bella threw a tantrum saying that she could use magic to clean her robes and continue wearing them for the time being until they could find new robes for her. That is when Daichi decided to put his foot down. There was no way that Bella was going to refuse Daichi's orders, so she could only pout as she decided to wear modern clothes. Bella kept watching the modern clothes with trepidation in her eyes, she was acting like the clothes were going to eat her. It was cute to watch the terrifying mad woman being scared of a simple pair of ripped jeans and a full-sleeved black t-shirt. Oh, and he shouldn't forget the unmentionables. When Bella was finally done putting on the clothes, she was completely taken aback by their sheer convenience, though she wasn't going to say that out loud. Bella was still feeling that the clothes were going to eat her whole. You girls wear these things? Bella asked in a slightly bewildered tone. She didn't mind showing off her curves to her lord, after all, her whole existence belonged to her lord, but she did feel a bit exposed. Well, yes. These types of clothes are pretty common among the girls, Siko admitted with a small smile on her face. She was also amused by Bella's reactions. Kyoko simply released a snort. After spending some time with the girls, she had gained a lot of confidence. Your clothes are more than decent according to the current fashion, Kyoko huffed, and Bella looked at the bespectacled woman with a bewildered look on her face. Really? Bella tilted her head in confusion as she glanced toward her lord, and after getting a nod from Daichi, a blank look appeared on Bella's face. Huh? Bella doesn't know what to say. Bella muttered with a faraway look on her face. Daichi would have been worried about her mental health, but she was already insane, so it was of no consequence, and it was already mentioned in the perks of her insanity incarnate title that mental attacks were completely useless against her. After all, according to the said title, there was nothing to damage inside her head. Daichi already felt bad for the people who might try to use mental attacks on her. All of them were in for a rude awakening. All of that aside, you look really good in those clothes, Bella, Daichi complimented Bella with a smile on his face. After that, he leaned down and pecked her on the lips. Bella squealed in joy and jumped into Daichi's arms. Bella is feeling really happy that you like her clothes, Bella muttered in her baby voice, and after releasing a longing sigh, she finally separated from her lord. Daichi then turned toward his mom, Roberta, and Kyoko. Come on, now show me your status windows, I want to see how much you have improved after absorbing mana from the mana stone, Daichi said as he urged the three of them to take a seat while he sat on the bed, facing them. Kimona was the first one to step forward. She extended her hand toward Daichi. The only male inside the room grabbed the offered limb with a neutral look on his face, and moments later, a translucent screen appeared in front of his eyes. Marioliona Vermilion, Yuzora Kimona. Level 1. Status points 15. Race human. Job none. Title The Undefeated Uncrowned Lioness. Strength 65. Agility 53. Health 59. Stamina 60. Mana 1700. Magic 200. Daichi remembered that his mom had 200 mana before absorbing mana from the mana stone, but now, she had 1700 mana, which meant that her mana reserve was boosted by 1500 points. While the points weren't much if compared to either Bella or Daichi, the number of points were still quite impressive. Daichi also noticed that right now, his stats were much superior to his mom's stats. Then his eyes went toward his mom's job requirements. Kill 300 level 0 enemies with a single attack. 300. Kill 30 level 1 enemies while only using your fists and flames. 24-30. Kill 3 level 2 enemies while only using your fists and flames. 1/3. Daichi noticed that Kimona was quite close to completing her job requirements. Kimona was probably going to reach level 2 before him, which was good for his group as a whole. For now, he decided not to make comments regarding her job requirements. There was a chance that his mom might start taking unnecessary risks if she thought that her son wanted her to reach level 2. That was something he wanted to avoid right now. Now, you will be able to use your flames much more freely. Daichi grinned and Kimona also nodded her head in satisfaction and pride. Daichi lets go of her hand and then he extends his hand toward Roberta. The purple-haired woman took Daichi's hand with a stoic look on her face, but on the inside, she was freaking out. She wondered if Daichi was going to be impressed by her stats or not. Roberta wanted to be strong enough to support Daichi-sama, not become a burden on Daichi. Status window, Roberta called out inside her mind, and moments later, a translucent screen appeared in front of Daichi's eyes. Rosarita Cisneros, Roberta. Status points 83. Level 1. Race, human. Job, none. Title, The Bloodhound. Strength, 43. Agility, 48. Health, 40. Stamina, 42. Mana, 450. Magic, 28. She is really close to reaching level 2 and she has also collected quite a lot of status points, Daichi thought as he took a second look at Roberta's status window. Roberta, why don't you use your status points to reach the sum of 200 for your physical parameters? Daichi suggested and Roberta simply nodded her head without any expression on her face. If that is what Daichi-sama wants, then that is what I will do, Roberta proclaimed, and Daichi could only shake his head after hearing her answer. Daichi released a tired sigh. He really needed women who could think for themselves. I don't mind if you use your status points to reach the sum of 200, I was simply suggesting. Daichi raised his hands in the air, giving up on the whole situation. Meanwhile, Roberta completely ignored Daichi's argument and she was already using her status points to increase her physical parameters. Roberta quickly realized that she needed to reach level 2 as quickly as possible if she really wanted to be useful to Daichi-sama. Roberta was an assassin, so needed to have more agility and stamina rather than strength or health. Although agility and stamina were important, she could not ignore strength and health. She would be fucked if she could not stab a person through his armor because of her low strength stat, and from Daichi she also knew that the health parameter also represented her healing factor. So, after thinking for quite some time, Roberta decided to increase her strength by 6 points, agility by 8 points, health by 5 points, and stamina by 8 points, leaving behind only 56 status points in her stock. Now, that Roberta finally reached the mark, she decided to wait for the system message to arrive, and she did not have to wait long for the messages to arrive. Your physical stats have reached the sum of 200. You have unlocked the job function. You cannot reach level 2 without a primary job. Mana Archive has finished inspecting your records. You can choose one of the following jobs. 1. Assassin. 2. Tracker. 3. Gunslinger. 4. Blade Master. 5. Shadow Assassin. Daichi-sama, I have received my job options, can you help me with the selection? Roberta requested in a neutral tone, but Daichi realized that she must be really nervous. Even though he did not know exactly what she was thinking, he could guess what she was thinking. Daichi released a sigh as he grabbed her hand. He knew that he needed to help her. Daichi quickly checked the options and the first option was simple and straightforward. Daichi wasn't surprised that Roberta was offered the jobs Assassin, Tracker, Gunslinger, and Blade Master. He knew that Roberta was an assassin, so no surprises there. She was also quite good at tracking, so no surprises there too. Daichi could guess that the Gunslinger job was something related to her gun-wielding skills, and it was the same with Blade Master. Roberta was quite good with knives too, so it wasn't a surprise that she received a knife-specific job. Shadow Assassin, I wonder what is that? Shadow Assassin seems to be the most interesting option, Daichi thought as he stared at Roberta, and that is when something clicked in his mind. It might have something to do with the perk of her title, Daichi realized, and soon, a wide grin appeared on his face. Chapter 70, Shadow Assassin, 2. Which one do you prefer? Daichi asked Roberta, even though he wasn't expecting an answer from her. Roberta simply inclined her head with a befuddled look on her face. The one you prefer is going to be my preference too, Roberta declared like it was the most obvious thing to do. Daichi almost palmed his face in frustration. I see. Daichi muttered as he glanced toward the Shadow Assassin job option. He did not know what being a Shadow Assassin entailed, but he could guess that it must be something special. So, he decided to recommend the Shadow Assassin job. What do you think about the Shadow Assassin? Daichi asked, and Roberta bit her lower lip as she scrunched her face in concentration. Right now, Roberta looked extremely cute, instead of a bloody psychopath. Well, Daichi didn't care that Roberta was also a bloodthirsty psychopath. Instead, he thought that it made her hotter. After a few moments, the light finally returned to Roberta's face. I think it will be nice. Roberta guessed with an unsure look on her face. Daichi was completely dumbfounded after hearing her words. Daichi started to wonder what the hell she had been thinking until now. Since Daichi-sama is interested in Shadow Assassin, I will choose Shadow Assassin, Roberta declared and tapped on the Shadow Assassin option, and this time, Daichi didn't bother to stop himself from palming his face. He would have groaned too, but he stopped as another translucent screen appeared in front of his eyes. You have chosen Shadow Assassin as your primary job. An assassin's powers come from shadows. An assassin is only valuable if they know how to hide themselves in the shadows. They must know how to blend into the darkness if they want to be successful. Only an assassin with the affinity of shadows can become a Shadow Assassin. You must fulfill the given requirements to acquire the Shadow Assassin job. Join a cause, select a cause, or acquire a master. Assassins without a cause or a master are simple killers. Simple killers could never become assassins. Accomplished. Assassinate 100 level 0 enemies from the shadows. 0 out of 100. Assassinate 10 level 1 enemies from the shadows. 0 out of 10. After reading the job requirements, Roberta stared at Daichi for a moment, and then a bright smile appeared on her face. Daichi-sama was her master, and she was happy that the mana archive could realize that. She also agreed with the fact that without a cause or master, she would be a simple killer, and simple killers could never become an assassin. Whistled. Daichi whistled after reading Roberta's job requirements. They were nothing outrageous from an assassin's point of view, but at the same time, it wasn't that simple. He could understand the first requirement and it might seem unfair, but it was true. Without a cause of master, assassins were simple killers, and simple killers should never be called an assassin. The second and third requirements might seem quite simple from an assassin's point of view, but they were not. After all, according to the requirements, Roberta needed to kill her enemies from the shadows, instead of without being discovered or something similar, which meant that Roberta needed to kill them while lurking in the shadows. That was going to be somewhat difficult, but he was sure that Roberta could do it, especially with the perks from her title. So, did you choose this Shadow Assassin job? Kimona asked as she approached her son and Roberta. Yes, Kimona-sama, Roberta said with a soft smile on her face. I don't know what perks I am going to receive from the job, but I will do my best to help Daichi-sama, Roberta declared with a proud look on her face, and Kimona beamed at Roberta with a proud smile on her face. I am really grateful to have you by my side. Daichi smiled lovingly, and then he captured her lips with his own. Roberta happily returned the kiss. The two of them finally separated from each other after nearly a minute. Daichi looked around at the others. For now, the mana stone is a secret to everyone outside this room, Daichi said, and everyone, including Kyoko, understood what Daichi was trying to say. So, all the women in the room nodded their heads in understanding with varying looks on their faces. Kyoko was different from the other women, so she still did not understand why Daichi wanted to keep the mana stone a secret, but since Daichi had asked her to keep it a secret, she was going to keep it a secret. Daichi nodded his head in satisfaction, and he decided that it was about time that he had a chat with Tawada Mika and Tawada Jiro. He wanted to nurture the two of them. Well, there is something I need to do, so I will be excusing myself. Daichi said as he started to make his way toward the door. Milord, can I come along? Bella asked in an excited tone. After contemplating for a bit, Daichi gave her a nod and Bella jumped with one of her fists raised in the air. Sometimes, Bella could be such a child, an extremely dangerous child. Is it going to be something important or battle-related? Kimona asked in a hopeful tone, and Daichi simply shook his head in denial. Kimona released a disappointed sigh. Then I will be staying here, Kimona said as she started to approach the balcony. Siko and Kyoko also decided to stay with Kimona, while Roberta seemed to be eager to accompany Daichi. As Daichi approached the door followed by Bella and Roberta, he started to wonder why Kyoko decided to stay with his mom. From what he had seen, Kyoko had been always afraid of his mom, so it wasn't surprising that he started to wonder she decided to stay around his mom. He thought that maybe it has something to do with her mom's blessings. Now that his mom had accepted Kyoko, maybe Kyoko was trying to get along with her future mother-in-law. Well, that is what Daichi thought, but he did not know anything more than that, so for now, he decided to give up. Neither Bella nor Roberta questioned him as he made his way through the house. He kind of liked the silence. He finally arrived in the living room where Kane and her group were going to stay for the night. The house wasn't small, but it was simply impossible to accommodate so many inside the house. Kane and her group immediately looked up at Daichi as his approach wasn't subtle. "Tawada Mika, Tawada Jiro, can I have a chat with you for a few minutes?" Daichi proposed without beating around the bush. The whole group was sitting on the floor, so they had to raise their heads to look at Daichi. The said girls looked at each other and after thinking for a bit, they simply shrugged their shoulders, and moments later, they slowly stood up. "Can I come too?" Kane asked. She stood up from the floor. Since Daichi wasn't going to talk about anything super secret, he didn't mind if Kane accompanied Mika and Jiro. Daichi led the three of them toward the garage. Anthony and his group were having a small campfire party near a garage. Daichi said that as long as there is no alcohol involved, he was fine with their party. Anthony and his group members were slightly unhappy that they couldn't have alcohol, but they could understand why Daichi told them to skip the alcohol. Anthony and his group also noticed Daichi's arrival and he simply waved them off. Then, Daichi finally turned toward Mika and Jiro. "Well, as you know, the world isn't going to return to its previous state. I mean, the world is not going to return to normal. We have to fight if we want to continue surviving," Daichi said, and Mika, Jiro, and Kane simply tilted their heads in confusion, while Bella simply looked unbothered by everything and Roberta looked stoic as ever. "What are you trying to say?" Jiro asked with a confused look on her face, and Daichi simply grinned. "You see, the two of you have received great skills from the Mana Archive, which are going to be extremely powerful if nurtured correctly. That is what I want to do. I want to help the two of you. That is if you want to." Daichi revealed what he wanted from them. The two of them gaped at the Daichi while Kane simply narrowed her eyes. "You are going to leave them be if they don't want to fight?" Kane asked Daichi as she stared at him intently. Before Bella could attack Kane because of the perceived slight, Daichi raised his hand to stop her. Daichi simply smiled at Kane. "Of course, I told you previously that I am not going to force anyone to fight, but their skills are going to be extremely useful. That is why I approached them personally, and that is also why I am willing to help them grow," Daichi explained, and Kane nodded her head in satisfaction. To be honest, Kane was scared shitless when Bella had glared at her. She knew that she had stepped out of bounds, but she knew that she needed to stay strong for Mika, Jiro, and the others. "We will fight, Yozora-san," Mika declared as she stepped forward. Kane wanted to ask if she was sure, but she decided not to after she noticed the determined looks on Mika's and Jiro's faces. Chapter 71, Clash I. "So, when are we going to attack?" Oriha Nashida whined with a pout on her face as she continued to fiddle with a chunk of C4 in her hands. Before anyone could answer Oriha, she perked with a bright look on her face, her eyes shining in excitement. Hey. If we attack them right now, then we will be able to take them out by surprise," Oriha suggested in a hopeful tone while her eyes continued to sparkle in excitement. "Yes, you tell them, girl." Seo Hitsuji cheered Oriha from the side. Some of the older members of Ampool Zero simply rolled their eyes. "I don't want to have a repeat of the last time," Miki reminded Oriha and Seo in a dry tone as she stared at them blankly. "But, how long are we going to wait?" Erasure asked with a frown on his face. He still remembered how they were defeated the last time, and to be honest, he wanted to return the favor to Yozora Kimona. The woman had escaped justice for too long and it was about time they did something about it. "As long as we need to," Yuko answered with a serious look on her face, leaving no room for arguments. "We can't make the same mistakes as the last time. This time, we will collect as much information as we could before making any moves," Yuko added as she stared at all the members of Ampool Zero, except for Miki Tsurugi, as the redhead already knew what was at stake. The last time we attacked Yozora Kimona, she was a normal human, but she was still able to wipe the floor with all of us. Seo and Yuko are both superhumans and she was able to defeat the two of them even though we were there to help Seo and Yuko. Now, she already has a skill, we shouldn't underestimate her in the slightest," Miki explained in a clipped tone. A/N, there might be some AU facts from here on. Whenever Yuko fought, her hair would turn white. In the series, it was never revealed why, so I might create some original facts just for the ease of my story. Technically, Yuko is not a superhuman like Seo, as Yuko is a completely normal human. That is until she is engaged in combat. Yuko's hair will change to white whenever she uses her sword to fight. Nobody including Yuko knew why it happened, but whenever it happened, she would gain superhuman abilities like super strength and super speed. After every fight, she needed to dye her hair again. Wait. Is there a chance that Yozora Kimona is someone like Sajiri-san? All of a sudden, Mikoto Kiba asked with a confused look on her face. The others also immediately turned toward Miko and Yuko. After all, only the two of them could give them answers. The other members of Ampoule Zero weren't a part of the research department. Kiba and Erasure were high school students, so most of the time, they were busy with school stuff, and the rest of the time, they were busy with black label tasks. Oriha is a Japanese idol and she is also a genius. She started college when she was just 11. So most of the time she is quite busy, and whenever she is free, she would fiddle with explosives. While Sayo wasn't a muscle brain, she didn't care much about research and stuff. Miki clicked her tongue. After testing Yozora Kimona's blood, we know that she isn't a modified human like Sayo, so we also thought that she might be a superhuman like Yuko, but we can't say anything for sure. Miki shook her head with an unsure look on her face. There is a chance that unlike Yuko she does not dye her hair, but once again, we can't say anything for sure, Miki explained with a sigh. But, our scientists think that Yozora Kimona is not like Yuko. Whenever Yuko uses her sword, her hair turns to white, and that is when she gets access to her superhuman powers, but... Miki glanced toward Yuko from the corner of her eyes, asking for permission if she could continue. Instead of letting Miki continue, Yuko decided to continue the explanation from where Miki stopped. But, there is a limit to how long I can use my superhuman abilities. The more I exert myself, the shorter the limit becomes. From what we have seen, Yozora Kimona does not have such a limit, so we theorize that in case she is a superhuman her powers are not like mine, Yuko explained with a sigh. Ah. Kiba nodded her head in understanding. Is there a chance her son, Yozora Daichi, is also a superhuman? Kiba asked curiously. Yozora Kimona and Yozora Daichi are not blood related, so the chances of him being a superhuman are extremely low, but we can't underestimate him. We saw how easily he destroyed the zombie horde. It might have been only a horde of 100 zombies, but it was still quite impressive. Miki explained after thinking for a bit. I think the insane-looking woman was much more dangerous than Yozora Daichi, Sayo muttered with a serious look on her face. I could easily see insanity and madness in her eyes. She was enjoying herself when killing the zombies just like Siko Busujima, but I swear that there is something off with that insane-looking woman. Sayo slightly shivered when she remembered the mad glint in the mad woman's eyes. You mean Bellatrix Black? Erasure asked to be sure. After all, Sayo did not use a name. After getting a nod from Sayo, Erasure couldn't help but agree with Sayo. I also felt somewhat uneasy when I looked into her eyes. Maybe it has something to do with her powers and did seem to be kind of insane in the video, Erasure concluded with a contemplative look on his face. And that is why we need more information before making a move, Yuko reminded everyone in a serious tone. In the video, we did not see Yozora Daichi using any skill, so we don't know what type of skill he has. Then the woman Bellatrix Black used various types of attacks, but we don't even know what her skill is. It is the same with Siko Busujima and the ones who were using guns. We don't know much about their skills, and going in half-baked would be disastrous for us, Yuko explained seriously. I hope all of you understand where we stand. Miki said as she looked around at everyone to make sure that all of them understood why they were taking their sweet time before making a move. Takagi Mansion. Tell me, what did you find? Soichiro asked the expressionless man standing in front of him. The man's expression on the man's face did not change in the slightest when he heard the hopeful tone in Soichiro's question. I didn't get to find much. The woman named Bellatrix Black has extremely sharp senses. She would have caught me if it wasn't for my skill. After that, I followed them from quite some distance while using my skill. Yozora Kimona is also a part of the group. Right now, they are staying in a normal-looking two-story house on the other side of the bridge, the man answered in a monotone. His eyes remained completely blank throughout the whole time. I see. Soichiro nodded his head in understanding. There is something else, another group is keeping an eye on them. I can't say what they want for sure, but I think they are planning to attack and kill the group you asked me to follow, Jigen said with a blank look on his face. This revelation was a surprise to Soichiro, but at the same time, he wasn't surprised. A monster like Yozora Kimona was bound to have enemies, and most of them wouldn't mind killing her son just to cause her pain. Good. Soichiro nodded his head in satisfaction. For now, lay low and keep an eye on both the groups. Collect as much information as you can without getting discovered, Soichiro ordered, and Jigen left the room after nodding his head in understanding. Sueviro placed his palms under his chin with a contemplative look on his face. At this moment, he did not know the identity of the other group, so it was better to watch from the sidelines. Jigen might be a good assassin, but that was it, he was an assassin. He was mostly useless when it came to open combat. He might be able to take on one opponent, but there was no way that he could fight against 3 or 4 opponents. So, for now, Soichiro was going to watch from the sidelines while the two groups dished it out. If the unknown group won, then he wouldn't even need to get his hands dirty, and if Yuzuru Kimono won, then he would swoop in with his forces and get rid of her. To be honest, he did not want to kill Yuzuru Daichi, but he also needed to go. For the greater good, of course. Soichiro nodded his head in satisfaction. He pulled out a glass from the desk along with a bottle of scotch. He poured himself a generous drink, and with the glass in his hand, he slowly stood up. After taking a small sip, he started to make his way toward the window. After arriving in front of the window, the man took another sip as he glared at the horizon. Chapter 72, Clash 2. I think, it is late enough. Daichi said as he glanced toward the clock hanging on the wall. Siko and Kyoko are on the stakeout duty, Daichi added as he glanced toward Marizato Chiba. The woman simply gave him a determined nod as she clutched her hands tightly. Daichi nodded his head in satisfaction. Good, then let's go, Daichi called out, looking toward Roberta, Kimona, and Bella. With that, all 5 of them left the house. It was already past midnight and it has been a long day for everyone, so everyone inside the house except for the 5 of them and Siko and Kyoko were fast asleep. No sleep for the wicked, I guess, Daichi mused in amusement as he made his way toward the street. The streets were kind of empty as only a handful of zombies could be seen lurking on the streets. Then all of a sudden, Bella arrived beside Daichi. Bella grabbed Daichi's hand and then she pulled him down so that she could whisper into his ear. "Milord, I could sense 6 people watching us from the roof of that blue 2-story house," Bella furiously whispered into Daichi's ear. The look on Daichi's face hardened. What the fuck is happening? Why are we watched so much? Daichi practically whined inside his mind. This was not good. Maybe I shouldn't have used the live streaming function, Daichi mentally groaned. Now, he was being treated like a superstar in the apocalypse and all of these people were acting like fucking paparazzi. Milord, these people are the same people who have been watching us when we were on the bridge, Bella added, and Daichi froze for a moment before regaining his bearings. Are you sure, Bella? Daichi asked Bella, and after getting a nod from the insane woman, Daichi frowned internally. Daichi knew that he needed to act normally or the people watching them would realize that they had been discovered. But why the fuck are they watching us? Daichi wondered inside his mind. Daichi wasn't going to call off the revenge mission just because a few people were watching them, but he felt kind of uneasy being watched and followed. Milord, they are also projecting a bit of hostility at us. At least, that is what I am feeling, but I am sure that they are being hostile toward us for whatever reason, Bella added hurriedly, and this time Daichi wasn't able to hide his frown, but he quickly regained his bearings. Now, Daichi was really feeling somewhat worried. Daichi has never done anything to be anyone's crosshair, and even after the start of the apocalypse, he had been kind of tame. So, why was this group gunning at them? Daichi started to run multiple scenarios inside his mind, and he finally realized that there were only 3 groups that might be hostile toward them. The first group was obviously Soichiro Takagi's group. The man hated his mom with passion and there was a chance that he might try to kill her. Even he had created a lot of ruckus near his mansion and the man might have considered it to be a slight. The chances of Soichiro Takagi attacking them with the intent to kill were quite low, but Daichi simply couldn't shrug off the chances, no matter how insignificant they were. The second group was obviously the Black Label. The chances of the Black Label attacking them were extremely high. After all, they have already failed to kill his mom once and this was the best chance for them to act. People like them don't like admitting defeat. They must have recognized him from the live stream and decided to make their move. The third group would be a bunch of nutcases who decided to attack Daichi and his group to get their hands on his resources. Nutcases were nutcases, so there was no way that Daichi could guess what they were thinking. But no matter who they were, Daichi vowed to make them pay if they decided to attack him and his group, and if it was Black Label, then he would hunt down the last of them. He was planning to make his move after getting settled in a more permanent place, but if the Black Label dared to make the first move, then good riddance. Did something happen? Chiba asked from behind. She was barely holding herself back from freaking out. True, she wanted her revenge and she was determined too, but at the same time, she was quite nervous too. She was already having second thoughts, but she knew that she had to do this for the peace of her mind or she would never be able to forgive herself. These people brutally murdered her husband and then they left her 9-year-old daughter to be torn apart by the zombies. That was something unforgivable from her perspective. After hearing Chiba's question, he decided to wave off her concerns. After all, he wanted to act completely normal. Nothing, everything is fine, Daichi said dismissively, and then all of a sudden, Kimona started to snicker. Then what the two of you were whispering about? Kimona asked with a sly grin on her face. She was telling me how she was going to rock my world, Daichi answered with a straight face, and Bella simply tilted her head in confusion as she didn't understand the innuendo at first. Blood rushed toward Chiba's face as a massive blush formed on her face while Roberta didn't seem to react in the slightest. Bwahahaha. Kimona burst out laughing as she grabbed her belly, and Bella finally understood what Daichi meant and a bright smile appeared on Bella's face. Yes, Bella, will be extremely happy to rock Milord's world, Bella chirped in her baby voice, and Chiba no longer knew what to say. At least, all the tension she was feeling has disappeared. Shoo. We are here, Daichi said as he swung his axe and beheaded 2 zombies at once. Kimona pointed her hand toward the zombies on the opposite side of the street, and a stream of flames came out of her hand. The flames engulfed the zombies, and when the flames finally dissipated, there was nothing left except for a few charred bone pieces. Bella, why don't you knock on the door? Daichi suggested with a grin, and a massive smile appeared on Bella's face. Daichi was surprised that Bella's face didn't split into 2. Bella turned toward the door and flicked her left hand with a mad glint in her eyes. Knock knock. Bella cackled in mad glee, and the door exploded inwards, sending a man flying down the hall. The man must have been hiding behind the door, following their movements. He must have stupidly thought that Bella would knock on the door like a normal person. Well, too bad for him. Bella has come to play. Bella cheered loudly as a yellow beam surrounded by white came out of her hand, and the beam hit the man on his chest. Moments later, the man started to scream bloody murder as his nails started to bleed. Daichi simply raised his eyebrows in interest. Last time Bella had used something called the Cruciatus curse in the medicine store, and this time, Daichi did not know what Bella had used. At least, it looked interesting, but for now, Daichi decided to put a stop to it. He couldn't allow Bella to have all the fun. So, he placed his hand over Bella's shoulder. That's enough, Bella, for now, Daichi said softly, and Bella immediately stopped whatever she was doing. Everything happened so fast that the other people living in the house weren't able to react. When Daichi finally asked Bella to stop, they came out of their trance, and all the remaining members rushed toward the man lying on the floor. The youngest female residing in the house stood in front of the man in a protective manner while pointing a kitchen knife toward Bella and Daichi. The woman was looking pale and afraid, but she held her ground while the older couple kneeled down beside the man lying on the floor. Who are you? Why are you attacking us? The woman with the knife stuttered out fearfully. Her hands trembled in fear, and Daichi could clearly notice the fear in all of their eyes, but Daichi found that he wasn't bothered by it. In fact, he felt completely indifferent. That should be obvious, you bitch. Chiba snarled from beside Daichi. Chiba, Kimona, and Roberta have also entered the house while Bella was having her fun. The woman faltered when she felt the hatred in Chiba's voice, but her face was only filled with confusion. I don't even know who you are. The woman holding the knife snarled back. Yesterday you killed my husband, you bastards, and you left my 9-year-old daughter out there to be killed. Chiba snarled in rage, and she almost jumped at the woman, but somehow she stopped herself as she knew that the woman had a knife in her hand. This time realization dawned on all of their faces and paled even more. Listen. We didn't have any other options. He was making too much noise. The woman whimpered and started to explain, but Chiba cut her off before the other woman could finish. Save it, bitch. Chiba exclaimed and pulled out the gun Daichi had given her and pointed at the woman. Tell me, which one of you killed my husband? Chiba screamed in anger. The woman whimpered again and started to sob. The others also followed her example and started to sob. Daichi was pretty amused by the whole scene, even though he was never going to say that out loud, but he was brought out of his musings when Bella pulled him down so that she could whisper into his ears. Milord, they have stopped holding back their hostile intent and they are approaching us, Bella said, and Daichi nodded in understanding as his eyes started to shine with malice. Chapter 73, Clash, 3. Why the hell are they breaking into some random house? I don't think they lack any resources, Sayo blurted out in a bewildered tone. To be honest, she couldn't understand why they were breaking into a random house. Something felt off. After all, they didn't have any reason to attack some random people, and it wasn't like they needed anything. He is Yozora Kimona's son, what else did you expect? He must be also a murdering maniac just like his mother, Mikoto Kiba growled in anger. Shit. They are going to kill them. Bellatrix Black is just as insane as the mother and son duo. Oriha gasped with a worried look on her face. Erasure, what the hell do you think you are doing? Everyone's head snapped in Mickey's direction when they heard her scream, but as soon the words registered in their minds, they turned in the direction Mickey was staring, only to find that Erasure was preparing a zipline. Erasure stopped what he was doing and turned toward Mickey with a hard look on his face. I am going to save them. I can't stay here and watch those monsters without doing anything, Erasure said as he tightened the hoop of the zipline. Don't be hasty, Erasure. We don't have any. Erasure, wait. Mickey tried to dissuade Erasure, but he wasn't going to listen to her, so he already jumped from the roof. Fuck. Mickey snarled in rage as she slammed her fist on the roof, creating a crack on the roof. The others slightly flinched back, but all of them glanced toward Yuko. After all, Yuko Sajiri was the leader of their group while Mickey was second in command and a voice of the reason of Team Ampoule Zero. Yuko, what do you want us to do? Sayo asked with a serious look on her face. Most of the time, she acted like a carefree battle maniac whenever she was on a mission, but in reality, she never lost the presence of her mind even when she was engaged in combat. We don't have time for this. We need to help Erasure. Kiba exclaimed as she started to rush toward the edge of the room, but Sayo grabbed her arm to stop her dash. Kiba turned around and gave Sayo a desperate look. Why are you stopping me? We need to help him. Kiba questioned hurriedly with a pleading look on her face. Sayo simply shook her head in denial. That is not for you to decide, Sayo said while glaring at Kiba. Sayo understood from Kiba was coming from, and she also wanted to help Erasure, but that wasn't her decision to make. So, Sayo turned toward Yuko, who was staring toward the house with a cold look on her face. What do you think, boss lady? Sayo asked, but Sayo did not answer. If we do attack, then once again we are going to attack Yozora Kimona unprepared, and this time, there are others too and we don't know much about their abilities, Mickey reminded everyone on the roof with a complicated look on her face. Mickey clutched her fists in anger, she couldn't but feel enraged at Erasure. This was the same time they were making the same mistake. But if we don't help him then he will get himself killed. Oriha said in a worried tone as she glanced toward Erasure. He is almost there, whatever we decide, we must do it quickly, Oriha added with a hint of concern in her voice. Yuko, who was still silent, finally released a sigh as she looked away from the house. We help Erasure, I know this is probably a mistake, but I can't let one of the junior team members die. Yuko finished with a small smile on her face and Mickey couldn't help but release a sigh. Let's go, we have some bad guys to beat and save our kohai, Yuko added, and the smile on her face widened. After hearing Yuko's words, the others also cracked a smile. And save some civilians too, can't forget that, Sayo reminded with a cheeky grin on her face, and the others chuckled after hearing her words. With that, all of them started to prepare their weapons and equipments. With Daichi. Milord, they have stopped holding back their hostile intent and they are approaching us, Bella said, and Daichi nodded his head in understanding as his eyes started to shine with malice. Daichi glanced at Chiba from the corner of his eyes and then he turned back to look at his mom and Roberta. We have some unwelcomed company. Mom, let's go and welcome them, Daichi said, and at first, Kimona simply raised her brows, but after a moment, a predatory grin formed on her face. Roberta, can I borrow a gun? Daichi requested before either Chiba or Roberta could say anything. Roberta was slightly confused by the sudden request, after all, Daichi hadn't displayed any time of interest in firearms after the apocalypse had started, but now all of a sudden he was asking for a gun. Even though Roberta was confused, she still pulled out one of her handguns and handed it over to Daichi. Daichi grabbed the gun and after turning off the safety, he pointed the gun toward the cowering family of four. Daichi did not need to load the gun as Roberta always kept them loaded. Daichi pointed the gun at the elder male, he wanted to see if he commit murder or not. They might have killed Chiba's husband, but they didn't have any other options. The old man flinched back and opened his mouth to scream, but before any sound could come out of his mouth, Daichi pulled the trigger. Bang! A loud bang rang throughout the hall and the old man dropped into the arms of his arms. The old woman didn't react at first, as she did not understand what happened when blood and gray matter was sprayed all over her body. Even when the old man's body dropped into her arms, she did not understand what was happening, she simply kept staring at the man in her arms with a confused look on her face. Realization finally dawned on her face and she finally understood what happened and she started to wail. The woman holding the knife slowly turned around to look at the older couple with a horrified look on her face. As soon as the sight registered inside her mind, she dropped the knife on the floor, and then she lunged at the older couple. "Dad!" The woman screamed in despair, just like the rest of her family members. But the main culprit, Daichi, did not feel a single thing after killing a person in cold blood. In fact, he felt kind of good. He felt like he had found a missing part of himself. He felt elated, and that is what worried him. Daichi didn't need to be a genius to know that he enjoyed killing, and Daichi wasn't happy with the revelation. Daichi wasn't unhappy with the fact that he enjoyed killing, he was unhappy with the fact that he could no longer be the voice of reason for his mom, Bella, Roberta, and Siko too. She also had a sadistic streak and she would mind going murder happy. Daichi shook his head to clear his mind. He could think about all of that later. He needed to greet his guest. So, he quickly turned around and looked at Roberta. "Roberta-chan, I am going to keep this for now," Daichi said, as he knew that Roberta wasn't going to deny his request, and then he turned toward Chiba, who was pale as a sheet. Planning to kill someone and actually killing someone in cold blood are very different things. At least, that is what I think, but what do I know? I enjoy killing, Daichi thought as he inclined his head with a thoughtful look on his face. "Roberta, you stay here with Chiba. If she can't finish the job, then you will finish the job," Daichi said as he continued to stare at Chiba. When Chiba heard someone use her name, she was finally brought out of her trance. She slowly turned toward Daichi with a complicated look on her face. "Sorry, I took one of your targets. I simply wanted to see if I could kill someone in cold blood or not," Daichi said with a sweet smile on his face. Before Chiba could say anything, Daichi started to walk toward the door. Bella cackled in mad glee as she started to follow her lord, and Kimona quickly reached up to her son with a proud look on her face. "Wahaha! That was marvelous. I am truly proud of you, son." Kimona laughed boisterously as she started to pat her son. As soon as Daichi walked out of the door, Bella flicked her hand. A translucent shield appeared in front of Daichi, and something impacted against the shield. The shield didn't even tremble at the impact, and before Daichi could thank Bella, several more projectiles impacted against the shield, but nothing happened. "Milord, allow Bella to deal with these filthy cowards," Bella requested with a mad glint in her eyes, and Daichi simply inclined his head, but he didn't say anything and continued to act forward. "You bastards!" Kimona snarled in rage and flames erupted out of her palms. Moments later, she lunged toward the nearest person who was shooting at her son. Chapter 74, Clash, 4. "You bastards!" Kimona snarled in rage and flames erupted out of her palms. Moments later, she lunged toward the nearest person who was shooting at her son. Daichi wanted to stop his mom, but she was gone before he could even realize what she was planning to do. "Mom!" Daichi screamed in worry and fear. After all, his mom jumped into a hail of bullets, but it seemed that all of his worries were completely unnecessary. A blanket of flames surrounded Kimona, and as soon as the bullets crossed the threshold of the blanket, the bullets would start melting and lose speed. None of the bullets were able to reach anywhere near her. The whole scene was so shocking that Daichi's jaw dropped to the floor. Even the attackers stopped firing. The whole scene was completely absurd, but Daichi knew that he wasn't dreaming or anything. Meanwhile, Bella simply clapped her hands as she cheered her mother-in-law. Unfortunately, before Kimona could reach the nearest assailant, another figure jumped from the shadows and arrived in front of Kimona's target with the intention of defending whoever it was. Kimona was in mid-air, so she knew that she could not back out. She pulled back her fist, and the figure guarding her target also did the same. Kimona grinned savagely when her fist slammed against the fist of her opposing figure. Flames erupted around Kimona and the figure who had dared to face her head-on. Everything around the two of them was illuminated, and two of the attackers finally came into the view. The figure who had dared to oppose Kimona was also a woman. Daichi deduced that it must be a woman, especially with that massive bust and hourglass figure. Daichi couldn't see the woman's back, so he was unable to make any comments about her ass. The woman's wavy blue hair was reaching down to her hips. The woman was dressed in a provocating nurse outfit. Her thighs were peeking out of the two cuts in front of her dress, and the woman was also wearing black metal gauntlets on both of her arms, and she was also wearing a demon mask to cover her face. The blue-haired woman in the nurse outfit was protecting another female. The female behind the blue-haired woman seemed to be somewhat young. After all, Daichi was quite familiar with the fullness of mature women, and there was no way that the girl at the back was a mature woman. She didn't have the fullness of a mature woman. So, the girl behind the blue-haired girl was dressed in a leather jacket and pair of bloomers. Her face was also covered by a translucent helmet, but her wavy silver hair was easily noticeable. The girl was also wearing metal shoes and knee pads along with metal elbow pads. Surprisingly, her thighs were completely unprotected. To be honest, Daichi couldn't understand why she dressed like that, but he wasn't going to complain. After all, that was a gap in her defense and Daichi was going to take advantage of it if he got a chance. More flames erupted out of Kimona's hand and the flames engulfed Kimona and the blue-haired woman. The flames burst out in the form of an explosion and moments later, Kimona and the blue-haired woman jumped out of the flames, but the two of them jumped out in opposite directions. The blue-haired woman had picked up the silver-haired over her shoulder, but she looked completely unharmed while a small trail of blood could be seen trickling down from Kimona's mouth. "Mom!" Daichi called out worriedly, but Kimona simply turned around to give him a sidelong glance with a predatory grin on her face. Then she turned back toward the blue-haired woman. "So, you have the power to reflect physical damage?" Kimona asked, but she didn't receive an answer, but the blue-haired woman flinched slightly, proving Kimona's statement. Kimona nodded her head in satisfaction. "Interesting. At least, you will be able to give me a better fight than the last time," Kimona said with a grin and lunged toward the blue-haired woman, who was standing several meters away from her. This time, Kimona decided not to jump in the air. "Bella, where are the—" Daichi began to speak, but he was interrupted by a loud bang and moments later, something collided against Bella's barrier, and the barrier trembled, but it held strong. Daichi wondered if this barrier was stronger than the barrier Bella had used to protect Siko. "Right. Bella, do you know where the others are hiding?" Daichi asked, but he didn't have to look very far when he saw a small figure running down the street. "There they are." Bella also noticed the small figure running down the street, but before the two of them could take a step, another loud bang was heard and another bullet collided against the barrier. Once again the barrier trembled furiously, but it held strong. This time Daichi did notice the muzzle fire from one of the roofs. "Bella, someone is on that roof!" Daichi exclaimed as he pointed toward a two-story roof. Bella grinned viciously and a purple beam shot out of her hand. The purple beam landed on the roof, but nothing happened. Moments later, the whole roof started to collapse and moments later, the whole building started to collapse. "What was that spell?" Daichi asked and Bella giggled. "I used the rotting curse," Bella answered with a gleeful smile on her face. Well, whatever it was quite impressive. Daichi hoped that someday he could use magic just like Bella. He would have already asked her to teach him, but Daichi wasn't getting any time for extracurricular activities. "But I don't know if I hit the target or not," Bella whined with a pout on her face. "Bella, use that human revealing spell," Daichi suggested and Bella nodded her head in understanding. Daichi could have tried to follow the small figure he had seen previously, but he did not know if it was a trap or not, so he decided to play it safe. Moments later, Bella launched another purple beam toward the wall on the opposite side of the street and a figure jumped out of the corner. Daichi realized that the person was clearly a male. The man was dressed in a full-body suit and he was also wearing metal knee pads and elbow pads. This time Daichi did not know if it was a boy or a man. After all, he wasn't an expert when it came to the male population. Daichi decided that for the time being, he was going to use the term man. After all, he did not want to hurt the person's delicate sensibilities. The man slowly stood up and pointed his guns at Daichi and Bella and started to shoot. The barrier didn't even tremble. Unfortunately, Daichi was not a long-range fighter and all of his enemies were using guns, but Daichi was out of his depth, but he did have a gun with him. Daichi pointed the gun at the man and pulled the trigger. Since Bella could easily shoot her spells through the barrier, Daichi suspected that he could shoot bullets too and his suspicion was right. The bullet hit the man's head. Unfortunately, the helmet was bulletproof. Fuck. Daichi cursed and pulled the trigger for the second time. Since the helmet was bulletproof, this time Daichi decided to aim at the man's chest. Unfortunately, once again, the bullet did little damage to the man. Holy mother of cow! Daichi exclaimed in frustration. Even the man's bodysuit was bulletproof. This was real life, not a fucking James Bond movie, but Daichi realized that with all the superpowers, anything was possible. Neither side was getting an upper hand as the man easily dodged all of Bella's spells. Bella's spells were kind of slow when compared to bullets. Anybody with a good body constitution would be able to dodge her spells, and with the mana archive, a person could easily boost their agility parameter, but nonetheless, it was still quite impressive. While the man was dodging Bella's spells, he didn't even seem to care about the bullets Daichi was shooting. It was riling up Daichi, but there was nothing he could do. Daichi knew that he would be able to probably kill the man at close range if he used the axe or his wolf fang dagger. The dagger was extremely sharp and it could even cut through iron with extreme ease. Daichi had tested it and he was quite impressed with the wolf fang dagger, but if he wanted to use the dagger on the man, he needed to get close to the man, and if he wanted to get close to the man, then he would need to leave Bella's protection net. Yeah, some might call him a coward, but if he left Bella's safety net, then he would be turned into a block of Swiss cheese. Daichi knew that he wouldn't die even if his whole body was riddled with bullet holes due to the skill he had acquired from the level 2 wolf, but he wanted to keep that skill a secret for the time being. That skill was his trump card. He would be healed even if his head gets blown apart, but that did not mean that the skill was absolute. It would only work as long as he had mana. Daichi's thoughts came to a sudden halt when all of a sudden Bella's barrier was split apart by a feminine figure. Chapter 75, Clash, v. Daichi's thoughts came to a sudden halt when all of a sudden Bella's barrier was split apart by a feminine figure. For a moment, Daichi could only gape at the figure. The woman was sporting one of the biggest pairs of tits he had ever seen, and the way the woman was dressed, it seemed that she had dressed to kill. The woman was dressed in a set of extremely provocative clothes and the woman was giving off a kind of Kill Bill vibes. After all, the woman was carrying a katana. The woman was one of the tallest women Daichi had ever seen. The woman had a pair of beautiful brown eyes along with silky white hair on top of her head. Her hair seemed to be slightly unnatural as her hair seemed to be glowing mildly. This woman was the only person in the whole group who wasn't wearing a mask to cover her face. Even though the woman was his enemy, Daichi found her quite beautiful. After all, it would be bad if he stopped appreciating beauty. Bitch! Bella snarled in rage and flicked her hand toward the woman. She wasn't happy that the woman destroyed her barrier. This time, a reddish beam came out of Bella's hand, but the white-haired woman simply swung her katana and cut the spell, and disappeared into thin air. What the fuck? Daichi muttered with a complicated look on his face and swung his axe at the woman. Even though the woman was a drop-dead mature beauty, she was an enemy, and from their equipment, Daichi had quickly realized that this was the so-called Black Label Vigilante group. So, they were going to pay. They have dared to attack her mom, now once again, they have dared to attack him. He was going to make them regret their choice. The woman stared at Daichi coldly and swung her katana. The katana cut through Daichi's axe like it was made of butter and Daichi could only gape at the sight. Motherfucker. Daichi breathed out with a shocked look on his face. This was not something he was expecting. Once again, the woman swung her katana and this time Daichi pulled out the Wold-Fanged dagger to defend himself. The katana clashed against the dagger and the woman's eyes grew wide in surprise when she noticed that Daichi was able to withstand her blow with that weird-looking dagger. A smile bloomed on Daichi's face as he realized that he would be able to use to fight the woman whoever she was. Daichi knew that there was a very small chance that he could win against the woman. After all, her skill with a katana was somewhere on Seiko's level. Even though Daichi knew that he won't be able to defeat her, he knew that he would be able to hold her back until the others were defeated. Daichi also knew that help was coming. Seiko and Kyoko were keeping an eye on them and they must have raised an alarm as soon as they were attacked. Well, as long as the Black Label members didn't have some sort of skill to create illusions or to cover their activities. Daichi was about to call out to Bella to recreate the barrier but that is when a loud bang was heard through the area. Milord, Bella gasped clutching her chest, much to Daichi's horror. Daichi noticed how blood kept seeping out from the crack of her fingers. Daichi wanted to rush at Bella, but the white-haired woman continued to relentlessly attack him. Moments later, Daichi heard a thump and as soon as he turned his head to look, he saw red in his eyes. Bella had plopped down on the ground and she was no longer moving. Arg! You bitch! Daichi exclaimed in anger as he lunged toward the white-haired woman. Even though his mind was filled with rage and anger, he knew that he could not himself to his anger. Another loud bang ran throughout the area and Daichi instinctively moved to his side to dodge the bullet. Daichi would have been surprised, but he didn't have the time to be surprised. He did not know how it happened, but he wasn't going to look at a gift horse in the mouth. It seemed that even the woman was surprised at his reaction, but there was not much she could do. From the start of the fight, Daichi had carefully placed himself in front of the woman, so that the man standing behind the woman with his guns pointed at him could not shoot. It was somewhat difficult and time-consuming but it was necessary. After all, Bella was probably dead so he could not hide behind her safety net. They were going to pay. Daichi vowed internally. Daichi continued to attack the woman relentlessly and that is when all of a sudden some blurry vision started to appear in his mind. Surprisingly, Daichi didn't feel uncomfortable due to the visions, in fact, he felt his movements and actions becoming smoother. Daichi felt his dagger skills growing as the visions continued to pour inside his mind. Somehow he was learning how to handle a dagger. You have unlocked a part of your true heritage. Daichi was bewildered by the sudden notification, so his attacks faltered for a second, but the woman wasn't able to use it to her advantage. What does it mean by my true heritage? Daichi wondered inside his mind as he regained his bearings. Once again, he resumed his attacks, and now that his skills were kind of superior to the woman, she was on the back foot. Daichi quickly realized that the woman's stats were lower than his and she was only able to fight him until now due to her superior sword skills. You have unlocked the skill Slaughter Instinct. Slaughter Instinct is a skill related to your true heritage. Another notification from Mana Archive appeared in front of his eyes. Daichi immediately started to wonder what the fuck Slaughter Instinct was. It seemed to be kind of OP from the name. Daichi would have checked the description, but unfortunately, now was not the right time. The visions continued to appear inside his mind and Daichi noticed that now he could easily overpower the white-haired woman, who was barely holding him back. Bang! Another loud bang rang throughout the area and this time, instead of moving, Daichi used his knife to cut the bullet from the middle. The sniper was responsible for killing Bella and whoever it was, they were going to pay by blood. Technically, Bella wasn't dead since he could resummon her, but that was beside the point. Now that Daichi could easily defeat the white-haired woman, he decided it was about time that he dealt with her. Yuko Sajiri was sweating profusely as she was barely holding back Yozora Daichi. She had decided to join the fight to tip the balance of the fight to their side. They knew that the fight was going to be tough, but the fight was much harder than they had anticipated. They did not consider the fact that the insane woman, Bellatrix Black, would be able to create some type of barrier, which could stop bullets. Even 50 caliber bullets were completely useless against the barrier. Guns were the main weapon of the team and now that the guns were kind of useless, they have lost a huge advantage in the fight. Fortunately for them, Yozora Kimona had decided to fight on her own and Yuko was sure that Seo and Kiba would be able to handle the Yozora Kimona for the time being. While Seo and Kiba were engaged in combat with Yozora Kimona, she signaled the others to attack Yozora Daichi and Bellatrix Black. Unfortunately, Bellatrix Black's barrier could easily withstand 50 caliber bullets. Then Daichi and Bellatrix were able to locate Mickey due to the muzzle flare. Fortunately, Mickey was able to dodge or she would have melted away just like the house. Yuko shivered in fright. Bellatrix Black was extremely dangerous and they needed to deal with her before anything else. Meanwhile, Ori had decided to set up a trap for them, but it seemed that they guessed that it might have been a trap. Yuko did not know how, but Bellatrix was able to locate Erishur. That is when Yuko decided to make her move. While Erishur was keeping the duo busy, Yuko kept moving towards the barrier while shrouded in shadows. After killing the first being after the awakening of mana, Yuko Sajiri had received a skill called Magic Negation. The just like name said, the skill allowed to negate magic. Yuko Sajiri is a melee fighter and with her skill, she was the worst nightmare of any mage. That is why she was the best opponent against Bellatrix Black from their perspective. The plan worked just like she wanted it to, she was able to nullify the barrier, but she found that she couldn't deal with Bellatrix as long as Yozora Daichi was standing. She was able to cut through his axe, but she wasn't able to cut through the weird dagger. She started to wonder if it was a dropped item. Even though Daichi wasn't as skilled as her, he was able to hold her back from attacking Bella and Daichi seemed to be a natural fighter. From the files, they knew that Yozora Daichi did not have any combat experience, after all, he was not like his mother. At least, before the apocalypse. Even though he lacked actual combat experience, he was able to keep her in front of him so that Erishur couldn't shoot at them. Yuko cursed inside her mind, but she hoped that Mickey was able to get the job done before they could erect another barrier and Mickey didn't disappoint her. Just like they have planned, Bellatrix Black was dead, and now they could easily deal with Yozora Daichi, but unfortunately for them, their plan did not work out in the end. Chapter 76, Clash, 6. Everything was going completely fine according to Yuko Sajiri's plans. From the looks of it, Yozora Daichi seemed to care about the insane woman, Bellatrix Black. She supposed that even the wicked could care about the others. So, according to Yuko's plans, if they killed Bellatrix, then there was a high chance that Yozora Daichi would be blinded by rage, and even if he wasn't blinded by rage, they could still kill him or incapacitate him. After all, he was no longer protected by impenetrable magical barrier. Yuko knew that killing Yozora Kimona was going to be extremely difficult even with all of their skills. That is why she wanted to incapacitate Yozora Daichi. She wanted to use the boy to blackmail Yozora Kimona, but she did not mind killing the boy if incapacitating him wasn't an option. Everything was going according to the plans, they were able to kill Bellatrix Black, and just like she suspected, Yozora Daichi blew his fuse, but that is when all of her plans were derailed. Even though Yozora Daichi was enraged, he did not lose his mind to anger. In fact, Yuko could feel Yozora Daichi's skills with a dagger getting better. Yuko clicked her tongue and used her fingers to signal Miki to go for the kill. Miki didn't need to be told twice, and after taking aim, she pulled the trigger. Miki decided to aim at Daichi's chest, instead of his head. She simply wanted a wider target, as she had made the same choice in the case of Bellatrix Black. Yuko, Miki, and Erasure were completely gobsmacked when they saw that Daichi easily moved out of the bullet trajectory. It seemed like Daichi already knew where the bullet was coming from. Even though the reality seemed kind of absurd, the truth was right in front of them. Yuko was even more surprised when Yozora Daichi's dagger skills continued to become better. After only a few more seconds, Yozora Daichi was overpowering her. This was bad, extremely bad for their plans. After only a matter of a couple of seconds, once again, Yozora Daichi surprised them by cutting a 50 caliber bullet right from the middle. Once again, the whole scene was completely absurd. It felt like out of some movie, but she knew that everything happening around her was completely real. Meanwhile, a couple of small notifications appeared in front of Daichi's eyes. Daichi would have loved to know what the fuck all of this was about, but he was kind of busy right now. You know, engaged in a fight to the death and all that. You have unlocked the race, Living Deity. The race Living Deity is a part of your true heritage. Living Deity, 9%. All of your physical status parameters will be increased by 27 points. Your mana and magic parameters are increased by 900 points. I don't know what the fuck is happening, but I am not going to look into the mouth of a gift horse, Daichi thought dryly, and he was tempted to whistle in amazement, but once again, now wasn't the right time. Daichi could immediately feel the changes in his body. 27 points were a lot, and he could feel the power coursing through his body. It felt amazing. It felt exhilarating. Yuko Sajiri's eyes grew wide in shock at the sudden increase in Yozora Daichi's agility and strength. She started to wonder if Yozora Daichi had increased his agility and strength with status points. Yuko could only grimace internally. Right now, she was going through the job acquiring process, so her status points section was locked. From what she has seen, there was no way that Daichi could be a level 1, he must be a level 2. She started to wonder what sort of skills he must be hiding. Yuko's thoughts were brought to a sudden halt when all of a sudden a stinging pain from her abdomen. Much to Yuko's horror, she found a large gash in her abdomen. You guys shouldn't have messed with me or my mother, Daichi said with a sneer, and before Yuko could react, she found Daichi in her personal space with his dagger raised up in the air. Even though there was a massive difference between both of their physical stats and skills, Yuko wasn't about to give up and die. So, she raised her katana in the air to protect herself, and when Daichi finally brought down the dagger, he cut right through the kanata and buried the dagger deep into Yuko's right shoulder. Yuko screamed out in pain as she dropped to her knees and blood started to drip down from her shoulders. Her white clothes were painted red in an instant. Yuko Sajiri howled in pain as Daichi pushed the dagger deeper into her shoulder. Everything happened so fast that Erasure and Miki weren't able to react. Daichi knew that he must have cut through her collarbones and punctured her right lung, but Daichi continued to push more. He kept pushing the dagger until it was buried up to the hilt. Yuko kept howling in pain as she tried to stop Daichi with her hands, but she failed as Daichi's strength parameter was higher than her. Additionally, her strength has also decreased due to her low stamina and health. Yuko finally stopped screaming as she lost her consciousness. Daichi knew that she wasn't dead. Yuko was still on her knees, and with a strong yank, Daichi pulled out the dagger from her shoulder and Yuko's body dropped to the ground with a wet thud. That is when Erasure and Miki broke out of their trance. Miki couldn't believe what just happened, while Erasure lost his mind to anger. He lunged at Daichi, forgetting about his guns, and Daichi couldn't help but smirk internally. Erasure was pretty good when it came to hand-to-hand fighting, but when compared to Daichi, his skills seemed to be completely novice. Unfortunately, Erasure did not receive a combat-oriented skill after killing the first being after the awakening of mana. He received a skill called Curtain, and the skill allowed him to shroud the others in a blanket of darkness. The skill even worked in the daytime, but from the combat perspective, the skill was completely useless. Daichi grinned when his dagger was easily cut through the bulletproof jacket the man was wearing. Even though the first wound was kind of shallow, Erasure flinched in pain. Daichi continued to slice through the man's bulletproof jacket and leave several cuts all over his torso. Erasure groaned in pain, and when he finally realized what was happening, it was already too late for him. Arashi's world went completely black when a fist smashed over his bulletproof visor. Chapter 77, Clash, 7. Whoever the man was, his hand-to-hand combat skills were laughingly pathetic. Daichi could have defeated the man even without his recent skills upgrade. It was pretty clear that the man was kind of dangerous. Daichi wasn't arguing against that, but right now, the man was blinded by his rage, so he kind of forgot that he was kind of crappy when it came to hand-to-hand fights. It took Daichi only a few seconds to completely destroy the man, and when he was finally satisfied with his handiwork, he decided to put the man to sleep for the time being. He would have preferred to kill him, but that was something he could not do. He needed to extract all the information they had related to the Black Label before gutting them like a pig, and all of them deserved painful death for attacking his mom. Daichi slammed his fist on the man's visor, shattering it. A loud crunch was heard and the man immediately lost his consciousness. Now that the visor was completely broken, Daichi got his first look at the man's face and he realized that he had been wrong. It was a boy. The boy was probably a high school student and he was already a psychopathic murderer. Well, Daichi wasn't complaining, but he killed his first human only a few minutes ago. Another loud bang was heard and Daichi simply inclined his head and a bullet passed by his head. This was getting boring. So he quickly picked up one of the guns the boy was using and pointed it toward the direction where he felt the sniper was and pulled the trigger without hesitating. After that, nothing happened. With an unsure look on his face, Daichi slightly lowered the gun, but somehow he knew that he had hit the target. Daichi couldn't help but frown with a confused look on his face. Where were these feelings coming from? Daichi questioned himself with a contemplative look on his face. He wasn't sure what was happening anymore. He could feel the presence of two more enemies, but their presences were fading, and one of those presences belonged to the sniper and the other must be a small figure he and Bella had seen previously. From what Daichi could feel, the two of them were retreating. Is this related to my slaughter instinct skill? Daichi questioned himself. And what did the mana archive mean by my true heritage? Daichi questioned himself, looking completely bewildered. Don't tell me that I am a son of some random god who is running away from the other gods and he sent me to this planet after locking away my memories and powers to hide me? Daichi wondered with a bewildered look on his face. After all, he also knew that his line of thinking was kind of absurd, but could anyone blame him? After all, according to the mana archive, he had unlocked a part of his true heritage and race, living deity. Daichi wasn't a super genius, but even he knew that deity was a synonym for god. To be honest, Daichi wanted to avoid this type of plot. He had read way too many novels to know how the plot was going to turn out in the future. Daichi turned around to look at the other part of the battlefield where his mom was fighting against the blue-haired woman and the white-haired girl. It seemed that his mom has also finished the fight. Now that the battles have ended and the remaining enemies have retreated, Daichi decided to check his status window. Yozora Daichi. Status points 14, locked. Level 1. Race, human, living deity, 9%. Job, none. Title, Heartthrob of One-Sands. Strength, 92. Agility, 89. Health, 89. Stamina, 79/92. Mana, 5475/6100. Magic, 1400. Whistle. This time Daichi didn't stop himself from whistling in amazement. Daichi was quite impressed with his all-over stats. Just a couple of hours ago, Daichi was afraid about stagnating, now all of a sudden, he was a lot stronger. Daichi released a sigh and decided to see if there was a description for his new race or not. Moments later, a small screen appeared in front of Daichi's eyes. Living deity is a being who is still immortal, but possesses a hint of divinity inside their bodies. The divinity possessed by living deities will be generic and it will not be related to any elements, concepts, or substances, but the divinity possessed by a living deity will boost their physical condition and their mortal skills. Whistle. Another impressed whistle escaped Daichi's lips, but now the suspicions of him being a son of some god increased even more. If he wasn't the son of a god, then how did he become a living deity? Daichi was sure that the others are not going to receive this advantage. Daichi rubbed his chin with a thoughtful look on his face. If he was really a son of some god, it would also explain the unknown titles and high mana affinity. Even the skill he received after killing the first zombie was also special and it was a unique skill. Daichi did not know if someone else could receive a summoning skill or not, but he knew that they aren't going to receive the black summon skill. Talking about black summon skill, Daichi glanced toward the black-haired woman lying on the ground in her own pool of blood. Daichi's lips trembled as he dismissed all the screens. Even though he knew that he would be able to resummon her, it did not mean that he was happy with her death. In fact, he was quite disheartened. He did not know if he could declare his undying love to Bella, but he cared for her, he loved her and now she was dead. He did not know if she was going to have her memories or not. Daichi was hoping that she could retain her memories. With a sigh, Daichi kneeled down beside Bella's body. He placed his hands under her body and picked her up after turning her over. Daichi would be damned if he left her body lying here, and he did not know how resummoning was going to work. There was a chance that he might need the body for resummoning. Daichi looked down at Bella's face and she kind of looked peaceful. Bella is nuttier than a fruitcake, but she is his fruitcake. Chapter 78, Clash, 8. With Kimona, a few minutes ago. How long do you think your power is going to save you? Kimona asked mockingly as she threw a punch at the blue-haired woman. The blue-haired woman did not even bother to defend herself. Kimona's fist landed on her left shoulder and moments later, it was Kimona who lost her balance. The blue-haired woman threw her own punch at Kimona, which landed right on Kimona's face and Kimona was pushed back a few steps. You don't have to worry about me. I can use my skill long enough to defeat you, the blue-haired woman answered with a cackle. I still remember how you humiliated me the last time, now I will be returning it to you, the blue-haired growled menacingly, and then she lunged at Kimona. Meanwhile, Kimona simply grinned and rolled aside to dodge the attack. The blue-haired woman obviously wasn't happy over the fact that Kimona dodged, so as soon as she could, she turned toward Kimona and twisted her body to throw a roundhouse kick at Kimona. Internally Kimona grinned as this is what she wanted the blue-haired woman to do. Kimona easily ducked the kick with her superior agility, and as soon as the leg passed over her, she grabbed the leg in a vice grip. The blue-haired woman tried to withdraw her leg, but once again Kimona proved that her stats were superior to the blue-haired woman. The blue-haired woman was only able to dominate the fight until now due to her troublesome skill. Kimona grinned viciously and picked the blue-haired with her leg and then slammed her back on the ground. Gah! The blue-haired woman grunted in pain after Kimona slammed her down on the ground. The blue-haired woman grimaced when she felt Kimona picking her up for the second time. This was not looking good for her. Can't reflect the damage now, can you? Kimona asked as she started to cackle in mad glee, and then she slammed the blue-haired woman to the ground for the second time. This time Kimona used even more power than the last time. During the first time, she wasn't sure if her enemy would be able to reflect the damage or not, so she had decided to play it safe and not use her full power. Now that, she was sure that the blue-haired woman won't be able to reflect the damage, Kimona decided that she did not need to hold back any longer. This time Kimona used so much force that the demon mask the blue-haired woman was wearing shattered. The blue-haired woman started to bleed from several places, but there was not much she could do except to get free. She could only hope for Kiba's help. After the awakening of mana, Seo Hitsuhi has received the damage reflection skill after she killed the first zombie. The skill allowed her to reflect all physical damage to the attacker. The skill was quite impressive, but at the same time, it had a massive drawback. Unfortunately for Seo, she did not know about the drawback until now. Seo knew that she could reflect the damage even if someone was using a weapon, but right now, she was being treated like a ragdoll and her damage reflection skill wasn't working against the ground. Wahaha. So, how are you feeling right now? Kimona asked as she started to laugh. Seo gritted her teeth in anger, but a loud gasp escaped her lips when she was once again slammed to the ground. Seo felt the wind knocked out of her lungs. Her whole body was aching in pain and she was already bleeding from several places. She was sure that a few of her bones were already fractured. Seo couldn't help but grit her teeth in anger. This fight was even more humiliating than the last time they fought. At least the last time she was able to hold her own for a whole minute before Kimona was able to beat the shit out of her, but today she didn't even last a minute even with her overpowered skill. All of a sudden, realization hit like a freight train. She had fucked up, and she had fucked up pretty badly. She became too dependent on her skill and she stopped fighting properly. Previously she would have never allowed her enemies to land a hit on her when she could help it, but after receiving the damage reflection skill she had stopped bothering about dodging, and slowly in just a matter of 3 days, she had lost her edge. Now, Yozora Kimona was treating her like a ragdoll, and there was nothing she could do about it. Seo's thoughts to a halt when once again she was brutally slammed to the ground. Seo felt her ribs crack under the pressure and she spat out a lot of blood from her mouth. This was the first time she was beaten this badly. Until today, only 2 people have been able to beat her in physical combat. The first person was Yuko Sajiri and the second was Yozora Kimona, but she wasn't beaten this badly either of those times. Kimona finally stopped brutalizing the other woman and started to breathe heavily. Kimona decided to check on her son, and as soon as she turned in her son's direction, a grimace appeared on her face. Bella was lying in a pool of her own blood and she seemed to be completely unmoving. Kimona immediately panicked and started to frantically look for her son, and she released a relieved sigh when she found her son pushing back the busty swordswoman. After watching the two of them for a couple of seconds, Kimona knew that she did not need to worry about her son. In fact, those guys have fucked up by killing Bella, and they have given him the drive he needed. Kimona wasn't worried about Bella, as she knew that Daichi could re-summon her. Now that she was sure that her son wasn't going to need her help, she decided to search for the white-haired girl. During the fight, the girl had managed to slip away. Chapter 79, Clash, 9. So, girlie, what is your name? You acted rudely even the last time, so it is nothing new. You ran away with your buddies without giving me your names. Kimona whined sweetly. Do you know how much time I spend looking for your guys? It was so frustrating. It would have been so much better if you guys have told me your names, Kimona added with a shrug, but once again she did not receive an answer. Unfortunately, Seo Hitsuji wasn't in any condition to speak. She was barely conscious and her jaw was also broken in several places, so there was no way that she would speak properly. She was also missing a lot of teeth and her face was bleeding, bruised, and swollen, so no matter how much she tried, she could not speak clearly. Kimona was extremely amused at Seo's pathetic attempts to fight back. Right now, Kimona was dragging Seo toward the building where the white-haired girl had run off to. Kimona did not know if the girl was still inside the building or not, but Kimona decided to have a look before returning. Wahaha! You just missed how awesome my son is. He just beat the two of your team members into the ground, Kimona mocked Seo. The blue-haired woman didn't even have the energy to glare at Kimona. Seo didn't need to be a genius to know that they were defeated just like the last time, but this time, their defeat was much more brutal than the last time. At least they were able to retreat the last time they were defeated, but this time they weren't so lucky. It would need much more than a miracle for them to be able to escape their current predicament. If anyone else in Seo's place, then they would be hoping for a miraculous rescue, but Seo already knew that something like that is not going to happen. Kimona finally entered the 3-story building. Kimona looked around and a predatory grin appeared on her face. The girl was planning to hunt her. She is the uncrowned undefeated lioness, and it would be rather pathetic of her if she allowed herself to be defeated by a brat. Kimona flung the broken body of Seo Hitsuji at the nearby wall. The body crashed against the wall like a sack of potatoes. Seo groaned. Most of the bones in her body were broken, some bones were already jutting out of her body, and some of her organs were in bad shape too. She was also bleeding internally. If any normal human was in her place, then they would have died long ago. Seo was only alive because of her superhuman body constitution. She was healing, but it was extremely slow and it was going to take her days to completely mend her whole body. So, are planning to play tag with me? That is quite nice of you. Kimona said with a mocking grin on her face as she stepped forward, but she didn't receive any answer. Not that she was expecting to. The building was completely dark, and it would have been impossible to see anything on the inside if not for the moonlight seeping inside the room. While Kimona seemed to be ignoring Seo, she decided to keep an eye on her for the time being. It would do her any good if the white-haired girl decided to run away with the body of the blue-haired woman. Hello. Kimona called out in a mocking tone, and only moments later, a claw passed by her head. If Kimona hadn't dodged the attack, the claw would have easily gouged out her eye. Kimona grinned in excitement. Fighting on the turf of the unknown always came with its own risks and dangers, and what's life without some risks and dangers? Well, back at the topic at hand, whatever passed by her head did not belong to a human. Kimona could feel that she was being watched, but no matter how much she tried, she could not locate the origin of the gaze. Kimona rolled to her side to dodge another claw attack, and this time she did get to see what type of claw it was. The claw looked kind of feline. Kimona simply raised her brows. This was going to be way more fun than she anticipated. So, kitty, are you going to purr when I start petting you? Kimona asked in an amused tone as she revealed her large canines. Kimona heard a loud hiss from her right side, but Kimona didn't take the bait. She simply decided to wait. Time was on her side, and the girl was trying to hunt her. There was no way that Kimona was going to make it easy for the girl. Moments later, a hiss was heard from above her. A smile tugged on Kimona's lips as she slowly looked up. She found herself staring into a pair of slitted hazel eyes. The figure dropped down at her and Kimona easily threw off the girl toward one of the windows. Kimona wanted to have a good look at the figure. The figure nimbly landed on the floor using all 4 of her limbs. A large furry tail swishing behind the figure's back. The figure was obviously feminine, and the figure was wearing the same clothes the silver-haired woman was wearing, and the whole figure was covered with silver fur. You are quite a big kitty, aren't you? Kimona asked with a grin on her face, and the furry girl growled at Kimona as she slowly stood up from the floor. The girl hissed at her for the second time and lunged at Kimona. Kimona simply sidestepped to dodge the attack, and after that, Kimona swung her foot at the girl, but the furry girl was able to easily dodge the kick by twisting her body. Kimona raised her brows at the sight. The girls seemed to be unnaturally flexible, but Kimona concluded that it might be related to the girl's transformation. The girl twisted her body in mid-air and clawed at Kimona's face. This time, Kimona wasn't able to dodge the attack and 4 cut marks appeared on her cheek. Kimona growled at the cat girl and threw a punch, but once again the furry figure easily dodged the blow. Meow. The furry figure landed on her feet and licked her paw. Nothing snarky to say? The cat girl asked in a mocking tone, and Kimona bared her canines with a snarl on her face. Chapter 80, Clash, END. After the awakening of Mana, Mikoto Kiba had received a skill called Feline Beast Transformation after she killed the first zombie. The name of the skill was kind of self-explanatory. It allowed her to transform into a big cat. If that was all, she would have been massively disappointed. After all, she would have been nothing more than a furry kitty, who is only good for cosplay shows. Even though catgirls were a hype in Japan, she did not think that anyone was going to appreciate her form. After all, her whole body was covered by silver fur. Thankfully, the transformation came with its own perks. Even though her fur was silver, she couldn't understand how she could hide better in the shadows. Secondly, all of her physical stats were boosted by 5 points. 5 points weren't a lot, but it was still better than nothing. Not only that, but she also gained the nimbleness and swiftness of a cat. She became a hunter, but she could only take advantage of all those perks inside a closed space. She was just like any other normal human if she was outside. If she wanted to use the nimbleness and swiftness of her furry form, then she needed to be inside a closed space. The whole thing was kind of absurd from her point of view. So, as soon as the fight between Seo Hitsuji and Yozora Kimona started for the earnest, she decided to retreat and hide inside a building. She felt really bad for leaving, but there was not much she could have done. If she stayed there, then she would have been just a hindrance for Seo. Additionally, her skill wasn't for such an open area. Seo could only handle Kimona because of her damage reflection skill. After entering the building, she quickly destroyed the main fuse to get rid of the power in the building. She would be able to hide and move better in the darkness. After destroying the main fuse, she quickly made her way toward the window. She wanted to see how the fight was progressing. Kiba trusted Seo, especially with her damage reflection skill. So, when Kiba finally saw how easily Kimona was brutalizing Seo, she was shocked to her very core. Kiba immediately wanted to rush out of the building so that she could help Seo, but somehow she was able to stop herself. Kiba bit her lip in anger and took off her helmet. She clutched the window frame with her hands in anger. Even if she went out there, there wasn't anything she would be able to do to help Seo. She would be simply throwing away her advantage. So, while gritting her teeth in anger, Kiba stood up and walked away from the window. She could not watch how Seo was being brutalized by that monster. Kiba vowed that she would take revenge for Seo even if the last thing she did. A couple of minutes later. Meow. The furry figure landed on her feet and licked her paw. Nothing snarky to say? The cat girl asked in a mocking tone, and Kimona bared her canines with a snarl on her face. Kiba's eyes grew wide in surprise when Kimona lunged at her at blinding speed. Kiba couldn't believe how fast Kimona was, and she was able to barely move out of Kimona's way to dodge the attack. Moments later, Kiba winced in pain. She looked down to found claw marks on her right side. It seemed she wasn't able to completely dodge the attack. All of her stats were boosted by 5 points, and with that, she had 47 points in total in her agility. So, it was pretty clear that Kimona was faster than her. Kiba immediately used the status points to increase her agility. Kiba finally stopped when her agility reached 61 points. She had more status points, but she had reached the sum of 200. Kiba would have paid more attention to the notifications popping in front of her eyes, but she had much more important things at hand. Once again Kimona lunged at her, but this time Kiba easily dodged the attack and launched her own counterattack. Kimona's eyes grew wide in surprise at the sudden increase in Kiba's speed, but she quickly realized what Kiba had done. Kimona raised her hands to defend herself and 4 scratch marks appeared on her arm. Kiba clicked her tongue in frustration. The scratches on Kimona's arms were just that, scratches. All 4 wounds were extremely shallow, and Kiba realized that her strength stat wasn't enough to penetrate Kimona's defense. Kiba grimaced as she realized her mistake. She had added all the points she could to her agility parameter, and now that she had reached the 200 mark, she could no longer increase any of her stats. Kimona snickered in amusement as she glanced at her wound. So, you added all the points you could into your agility parameter, but your strength is so low that you can't penetrate my defense. Kimona started to cackle in amusement and Kiba growled at the woman, but no matter how much she tried, she couldn't form any rebuttals. Oh. Let me guess, you reached the 200 mark and now you cannot increase your strength, right? Kimona asked in an amused tone, and Kiba simply lunged at Kimona with a hiss, instead of answering. Since Kiba was much faster than Kimona, the older woman couldn't move out of the way, not that Kimona was planning to dodge. Kimona knew that Kiba was much faster than her, so there was no way that she would be able to dodge the incoming attack, so she decided to let her get injured and catch the girl. The cat girl's strength was kind of low when compared to her, so there was no way that the younger girl would be able to get free from her grip. Kiba missed the whole plot and swiped her claws at Kimona, who didn't even bother to protect herself. That is when Kiba realized that something was wrong, but it was too late to back out. 4 claw marks appeared over Kimona's left shoulder while 4 other marks appeared over her right shoulder, but before Kiba could continue the attack, Kimona's hands gripped around Kiba's wrists and Kimona started to grin savagely. Now there is nowhere to run, little kitty. Let me welcome you to my flaming purgatory. Kimona growled and everything drowned in flames. Chapter 81, Resummoning, I. Daichi-sama, are you alright? Roberta asked in a worried tone as Daichi decided to lay down Bella around the corner of the street, away from anyone's prying eyes. The fight was quite loud, so all the members of his group had come out of the house to see what was happening. Thankfully, it seemed that Siko and Yuriko stopped anyone from interfering in the fight. Only his mom, Roberta, Kyoko, and Siko knew that Bella wasn't a resident of this world. She was a summon, so he was thankful for the fact that she had stopped anyone from coming over here. Daichi wanted to keep his primary skill a secret. He wasn't planning to tell anyone about his skill except for the people he trusted blindly. He was planning to take the secret to his grave, but he knew that it was kind of impossible too. Kyoko's skill is called Appraisal and it is only an A-class skill, and it was not a unique skill, so there was a high chance that someone else was probably rocking the same skill. Kyoko had told him that she could see his status window along with his skill page, and it was the same for Bella too. If Kyoko could see his status window and skills, then there was a good chance that anyone else with the same skill would be able to do the same too. So, Daichi was going to keep his skill a secret as long as he could. Then all of a sudden realization hit Daichi like a freight train. He had no idea how to resummon Bella. After a few seconds, Daichi decided that he needed to open his skill. He might find something there. So, without wasting any more time, he opened his skill page. Moments later, a small transparent screen appeared in front of his eyes. Skills. 1. Black Summon, first tier skill, unique, cost, 150 mana. You can summon a random black character as your partner. Your character could heal using your mana, if injured. If your character dies, then the character could be summoned again, but the mana cost would increase. 2. Rampage. The skill allows the user to boost all of their physical status parameters by 200% in exchange for mana for 5 minutes. The cost of the skill will vary depending on the user's health status. The lower the user's health, the lower the cost of the skill. Cooldown time 3 days. 3. Instant heal cost depends on injury, minimum 100 mana. When the skill is activated, any wound sustained by the user will be healed instantly. If the brain of the user gets destroyed, the skill will activate on its own, but if the user doesn't have enough mana, then the skill won't activate. 4. Slaughter Intent, first order skill, cost none. Slaughter Intent is a passive skill. This skill cannot be acquired through Mana Archive, so all the details are not available. This is a skill related to the user's true heritage. Perk 1. You can use your enemy's bloodlust and battle intent to sharpen your senses to inhuman levels. Perk 2. Locked. Perk 3. Partially locked. Cooldown time none. Daichi badly wanted to check out his passive skill, but now was not the right time. He had much more important things to do, like resummon his fruitcake. So, Daichi tapped on his first skill. As soon as Daichi tapped on the skill, Bella's name appeared on the top and it was blacked out. Daichi wasn't surprised much as he knew that it must be because Bella was dead. Daichi quickly read through the rest of the instructions and he almost released a relieved sigh. Daichi glanced to the side and found Maruzato Chiba staring at them. He would have preferred if she wasn't here, but he couldn't send her away. She was going to ask questions, after all, she had seen that Bella was dead. I will explain everything later and I am not resurrecting her, Daichi said cryptically. He knew that she could easily misunderstand the situation and attack him if she thought that he could have revived her husband. At first, Chiba did not understand what he was trying to say, but it didn't take her long to realize what he meant. At first, she was about to lunge at Daichi when she realized that he was about to bring Bella back to life, but she stopped herself when she remembered that he promised to explain everything. Even though she wanted to complain and rage, she held herself back. She knew that she could not go against either Daichi or Roberta. They would kill her. Daichi previously released a sigh because he saw that he needed 1000 mana to resummon Bella. So, if he had not awakened his true heritage or whatever, then he wouldn't have been able to resummon Bella. Even though he had more than 1000 mana, he could not use 1000 mana in one go due to his low magic, but now that he had more than 1000 magic, he could easily use 1000 mana in one go. Without wasting any more time, Daichi tapped on the resummon option, and moments later, Bella's body disintegrated into black dust and another Bella appeared in front of him with a confused look on her face. Bella blinked in confusion as she looked around and Daichi grimaced after he saw her expressions. All of his worries disappeared when Bella stared at him for a moment and then lunged at him with a beaming smile on her face. "Milord, how? Are you dead too?" Bella asked in a confused tone as both Daichi and Bella dropped to the ground with Bella on top of Daichi. "No, Bella, don't you remember that I could resummon you if you died?" Daichi asked and a look of realization finally dawned on Bella's face. Bella forgot. Teehee, Bella giggled like a little girl as she wrapped her arms around Daichi. "Bella, sorry to break the mood, but you must get up now. There are a lot of things we need to do and we can talk later." Daichi pointed and Bella immediately got up even though she didn't want to. Meanwhile, Daichi internally released a sigh because the resummoned Bella was his Bella. Chapter 82, Resummoning, 2. "Roberta-chan, what happened to the people inside that house?" Daichi asked as he finally stood up from the ground. Roberta's gaze flickered toward Chiba for a moment before she cleared her throat. "She killed them. Though I wonder when she is going to break down," Roberta muttered with a thoughtful look on her face, and even though Roberta was being kind of cryptic, Daichi clearly understood what she was trying to say. He was surprised that Roberta wasn't already fussing over him. "Daichi-sama, are you alright?" Roberta inquired with a hint of concern in her voice. "It seems that I spoke too soon." Daichi thought drily as he slowly turned toward Roberta. "I have never been better," Daichi quipped with a smile on his face. Obviously, Roberta wasn't convinced, but she decided to hold her tongue for the time being. "Milord, what happened to the ones who were attacking us?" Bella asked curiously, but he could practically feel the anger radiating off her. "2 of them ran away, but the rest are captured. 2 of them are lying right there," Daichi said as he jerked his chin toward the other end of the street. Bella slowly turned her head only to find 2 people lying on the floor. Moments later, a bright smile bloomed on Bella's face. "Milord, you wouldn't mind if I had some fun with them, right?" Bella asked eagerly and Daichi simply smiled as he started to pat Bella's head. Right now, Bella looked extremely adorable. "Sure, but, you must have some patience, my dear. There are some things we must do before we can indulge ourselves," Daichi said with a grin, and even though Bella looked somewhat reluctant, she happily agreed with Daichi. "Good," Daichi said, and then he turned toward Chiba. She still seemed to be holding herself back. "Roberta-chan, can you inform Marasato-san about my skill, but tell her to keep the details to herself," Daichi said without looking toward Roberta. The purple-haired woman simply nodded her head and made her way toward Chiba. Chiba wasn't standing that far from the trio, so she clearly heard what Daichi said. So she promptly left with Roberta without saying anything. Meanwhile, Daichi noticed Yuriko along with Siko and Kota approaching him, while some of the members of his group who were adept at fighting were standing outside the house while the others were standing on the balconies. "What happened, Daichi-san?" Yuriko asked as soon as she arrived in front of Daichi. "I won't know until I interrogate them," Daichi said, pointing toward the 2 people lying on the street, and then he pointed toward his mom, who was dragging 2 bodies over the street. Yuriko glanced toward the bodies lying on the street with an unreadable look on her face, and then she turned toward where Daichi pointed next. Yuriko couldn't help but grimace at the sight. One of the bodies Kimona was dragging was barely recognizable as a female. The said female body was almost completely charred, and Yuriko started to doubt if the woman was even alive or not. The second woman Kimona was dragging looked kind of broken, and Yuriko meant it literally. Yuriko couldn't help but shudder in fright as she couldn't even guess what Kimona had done to the woman to break her body in such a manner. Meanwhile, Kota took in the sight and gulped loudly. Moments later, he turned toward Daichi with a determined look on his face. Kota knew a lot about the mother and son duo, so he could kind of guess the situation, but he did not understand why these people decided to attack. No matter the reason, Kota already decided that he was going to support Daichi, but he still wanted to know why they attacked. He was simply curious. Yozora-senpai, why did these people attack us? Kota asked as he continued to stare at Daichi. Daichi inclined his head and glanced toward Yuriko. If Yuriko wasn't here then he would have told the truth because Kota already knew what kind of people they were. So, Daichi started to think if he should answer him or not, and if he did answer then how much should he reveal in front of Yuriko. After thinking for a bit, Daichi decided that it was finally time to come clean. At least, somewhat. Though he wasn't planning to give them the full truth. Yuriko was slowly becoming a major part of the group and he did not know how long he would be able to hide the truth from her without raising suspicions. Additionally, he was also planning to attack Black Label tonight. He needed all the fighters he could. He wasn't delusional enough to think that he could deal with the whole organization on his own. I don't know they are, but they wanted to kill my mom. At least, I think that was their objective. They have tried to assassinate my mom even before the apocalypse but they failed. Daichi explained and Yuriko paled like she has seen a ghost while Kota and Siko simply nodded their heads in understanding. What? How did they even find Kimona-san? Yuriko questioned with a frantic look on her face. To be honest, Yuriko did not know what to think of the whole situation. She knew that Kimona worked for the government, and she also knew that her ex-husband hated the woman, but he never told her why he hated her. Yuriko started to wonder why Kimona had so many enemies and if it was related to her job. I think they found her through me. Bella sensed them watching us when we were crossing the bridge. They must have recognized me from the stream. Bella felt that someone was watching the house, so we decided to check. We left the house without telling Siko or Kyoko as we did not want to alert them, but we were wrong. As soon as we were somewhat away from the house, they attacked us, Daichi explained with a straight face. Daichi was lying through his teeth, but it was necessary. He just couldn't tell Yuriko that they left the house to kill the family who killed Chiba's husband and that is when the group attacked them. Oh. Then what is Marasato-san doing with you? Yuriko asked with a confused look on her face after thinking for a bit. Yuriko wasn't accusing Daichi of anything, yet, but she felt that something was amiss. Chapter 83, Torture, I. Daichi wasn't amused by Yuriko's question in the slightest. He wasn't angry or anything, he was simply annoyed. To be honest, he did not expect Yuriko to remember the fact that Chiba was here, especially with everything going on and he hated the fact that he forgot Chiba when he was telling Yuriko why the Black Label attacked them. So, once again, Daichi needed to think a bit before answering the question. She was probably in the backyard, she came out running as soon as the fight started. It was a bad move on her part, but it is a good thing that she didn't try anything stupid. Daichi said while shaking his head. Meanwhile, Siko was simply staring at Daichi with an unreadable look. Siko simply couldn't believe how easily Daichi was making up stories. Well, he didn't lie much in the first part, he simply twisted the story to portray themselves as the good guys. Not that she cared and she was even more impressed when he started to answer why Chiba was with them, especially when Yuriko seemed to be believing whatever Daichi was saying. Ah. I see, Yuriko nodded her head in understanding as she bit her thumb. The Yuriko glanced toward Bella. She clearly remembered Daichi carrying her in his arms and she kind of looked pale and dead. She looks kind of alive and perfectly fine to me. Oh, well. Yuriko decided not to ask any more questions even though she was curious. If Yuriko was being honest, she was extremely afraid of Bella, but she knew how to hide or suppress her emotions. Yuriko believed staying alive was much more important than knowing all the answers. Yuriko also knew that Daichi was probably hiding something. Even though there were no disparities in Daichi's answer, she could that there was something amiss. Yuriko would have loved to investigate the matter more deeply and reach the bottom of the matter, but she had a feeling that she wasn't going to like what she was going to find. Oh. Kota nodded his head in understanding. He also knew that something was off with the whole thing, but once again he did not care. He was going to support Daichi no matter whatever reason they had for attacking. So, what are we going to do to them? Kota asked as he glanced toward the two people lying down the street and then he glanced toward Kimona, who just arrived in front of them with the other two. So, did you enjoy yourself? Daichi asked his mom, who smiled and dropped the two people she had been dragging. Oh, yes. It was a lot of fun. I would have been happy if there was a bit more action, but this is alright too, I suppose, Kimona shrugged dismissively. Good, Daichi nodded his head in satisfaction. Then he glanced toward the two people his mom dragged here. You were quite merciless. I like that, Daichi said as he nodded his head with a grin. Kimona beamed at the praise, but before she could say anything, Daichi continued to speak. Bella, can you get Kyoko? Daichi requested and Bella immediately walked away after giving him a nod. Their survival is going to depend on the skills they have, Daichi said with a snort. Yuriko grimaced at the underlying meaning behind his words, but if she was in his shoes then she would have made the same decision too. After all, these people have tried to kill Kimona even before the apocalypse, and now that there were no police, so they needed to take matters into their own hands. Ho ho ho. Kimona chuckled in amusement. So, how are you planning to control them? Kimona asked curiously. After all, it wouldn't do them any good if these guys betrayed them on a later date. Killing them right now would be much better in that case. I am going to control them in the same way I am controlling Sato-san, Daichi said with a blank look on his face. He hadn't told anyone how he was controlling Sato Ichika, so he finally started to explain. Daichi knew that Yuriko was different and she would react differently, but he still decided to tell her, but he was tired of hiding some of the facts. If Tsukumo and Aoba were still alive then Daichi wouldn't have revealed the truth, and now that the two of them were gone, he was free to act however he wanted. Sarah Yui and Ko Emiko were still here, but the two of them did not have any power in their group, and now that Aoba and Tsukumo were gone, nobody was going to listen to them. Yuriko might be a good-hearted woman, but her priority was her daughter's safety, and as long as her daughter was safe, Yuriko wasn't going to do anything. Just as Daichi suspected, Yuriko wasn't happy, but she decided not to make any comments. After a few seconds, Bella finally returned with Kyoko in tow. Some of the fighters also decided to follow the two of them. Tawada-san, Kabato-san, can you bring them to me? Daichi requested while looking at Kane, and Ran pointed while he pointed toward the two people lying a few meters away from them. The two of them nodded their heads in understanding. The two of them passed by Daichi's group, and that is when Daichi remembered something. Wait. Let me come along. Daichi called out as he caught up to the two of them. Daichi realized that there was a chance that the two of them were playing dead. He did not want to lose either Kane or Ran, both of them were quite important to the group. Tawada-san, do you mind if I use your first name? I mean there are 4 of you with the same last name, Daichi requested with a smile as the 3 of them continued to walk. Sure, we were thinking the same thing, if you don't mind. I mean with you and your mother having the same last time, Kane explained, and Daichi simply smiled. Sure, I would love that, Daichi smiled, and in return, both Kane and Ran smiled. All in all, it was a good bonding conversation. Chapter 84, Torture, 2. Daichi quickly checked the boy and the woman to see if they were still knocked out or acting. Daichi smiled as he found that the two of them were still knocked out. So, without wasting any more time, Daichi told Ran and Kane to pick up the boy and the woman respectively while he quickly collected their weapons. Daichi wasn't knowledgeable as Koda when it came to guns, but he could easily notice that the guns weren't stock. Daichi also picked up the katana the woman was using. He did not know if it was anything special or not, but it was still a good weapon, so it would be a waste to leave it here. Daichi, Ran, and Kane finally returned to the rest of the group. After placing the boy and the woman beside the broken woman and the charred girl, Daichi slowly turned toward Kyoko. Kyoko, can you tell me what skills they have? Daichi softly requested, and Kyoko nervously nodded her head. After a few moments, she nervously stepped forward and kneeled down beside the charred girl. Kyoko scrunched her face in fear and revulsion. She continued to stare at the girl for a few moments and then, she turned around to look up at Daichi. Her skill is called Feline Transformation. The skill allows her to transform into a human-cat hybrid. The skill also boosts all of her physical stats by 5 points, and her skill also makes it easier for her to hide in the darkness, Kyoko explained, and Daichi nodded his head in understanding. Yeah. She was being a naughty kitty, so I had to turn up the heat, Kimona muttered with a giggle. Even if someone hurt her, they decided not to say anything. Kyoko licked her lips due to her nervousness, and then she turned toward the blue-haired woman. Only the blue-haired woman was still conscious, but she was so badly broken that there was no way that the woman would be able to move. Kyoko gulped in fear and continued to stare at the blue-haired woman. Kyoko knew that the blue-haired woman was fighting Kimona. After all, she had witnessed the fight from the start. Kyoko shivered in fright. After reading the woman's stats, Kyoko discovered that the woman wasn't weak, in fact, Kimona was simply stronger. So, if Kimona wanted, then she could have been in the same state as this woman, or even worse. Just like the charred woman, or girl. It was kind of hard to distinguish right now. Kyoko was glad that she never gave the woman any reason to do that to her, and now, she wouldn't have to worry that much since Kimona had given her the blessings. Kyoko finally turned back to look up at Daichi. Her skill is called damage reflection, and she could reflect damage to the person attacking her. Though you must keep in mind, her skill only works with physical damage. Even if the physical attacks are imbued with mana, she could reflect the damage back to the person who is attacking her, Kyoko explained, and Daichi smiled as he nodded his head in understanding. It was a good thing that he decided not to kill them. No, killing them would have been a waster, and it would have been an easy out for them. He wanted to make them regret the fact that they have dared to attack his mom. At first, he was planning to simply kill these guys after torturing them, but now he had a better plan. He wanted to destroy them. The Black Label had tried to kill his mom because they were self-righteous fuckers. So, with the help of Bella, he was going to enslave these people, and then he was going to use them to destroy the Black Label. The Black Label was created to protect the innocents and get rid of the criminals who are out of the reach of the justice system. Now Daichi was going to use these people to kill the innocents. In other words, he was going to turn them into the same people they hunted. Yes, that would be a coup indeed. Kyoko finally finished examining the boy, so she turned around to look up at Daichi. His skill is called Curtain, and he could use his skill to shroud some people in darkness, Kyoko explained, and Daichi wasn't impressed with the skill in the slightest. Then Kyoko finally moved on to the last person. The woman's bust was even bigger than Kyoko's, and Kyoko's breasts were the biggest when it came to the women Daichi had slept with. After a few moments, Kyoko finally stood up and dusted off her hands. Her skill is called Magic Negation, and just like the name says, she could cancel any type of magic with a simple touch, Kyoko explained, and Daichi hummed with a thoughtful look on her face. Ran-san, can you get me Jiro-san and Saya-san? Daichi requested as he glanced toward Ran from the corner of his eyes. Yeah, sure, Ran said with a nod of his head, and then he left. What are you planning to do? Yuriko asked curiously. She could guess why he summoned her daughter, but Saya didn't have enough mana to create healing potion. At least, that is what she was expecting he wanted from Saya. You will see. Daichi muttered and turned toward Kota. Can I have your smartphone? Daichi requested, and Kota simply handed his smartphone to Daichi without questioning anything, even though he looked curious. Daichi quickly opened the notepad and started to make some notes. Then he turned toward Bella. Tell me, Bella, if a slave connection breaks, will you feel it? Daichi asked as he continued to tap on the screen. He didn't even bother to look away from the screen. Of course, milord, Bella said with a proud grin on her face. Daichi nodded his head in satisfaction. Good. Then please start the ritual to turn them into your slaves, and can they listen to your commands even when they are knocked out? Daichi asked, and this time he did look away from the screen to stare at Bella. No, they need to stay conscious, Bella revealed with a sullen look. I see. Daichi muttered with an unreadable look on his face. Well, anyway, you can start the slave binding rituals, Daichi ordered, and Bella cheered in happiness as she clapped her hands in complete joy. Chapter 85, Torture, 3. This is a mana stone. This thing can permanently increase your mana reserves, Daichi explained as he showed off the mana stone to the group. The ones who didn't know about the mana stone stared at the stone with awe in their eyes. Daichi knew he was probably taking a risk, but it was a necessary risk. He needed to trust his group, so he decided to take a leap. Shizuka Marikawa was yet to receive a skill, and there was no guarantee that she was going to receive some sort of healing power. So, until she received a healing skill, his best bets were Tawada Jiro and Saya Takagi. Both of them had received the same skill. Tawada Jiro could create healing potions, but Saya Takagi didn't have enough mana to create mana potions. So, Daichi didn't have any other options besides revealing the mana stone to the Takagi mother and daughter duo. Where did you get this thing? Yuriko asked as she continued to stare at the mana stone. I found this at the gas station, and the reason I didn't show it to the rest of the group is because this mana stone isn't going to last forever. It only has limited uses and it has already lost quite a bit of power, Daichi explained, and hoped that he didn't end up hurting anyone's delicate sensibilities. From the expression on everyone's faces, it was clear that they did not mind it a lot, but he couldn't say for sure. I assume that you have already used the stone to increase your mana reserve? Kane asked curiously, and Daichi shamelessly nodded his head. Yes, I have used the stone, just like all of my closest aides. Do you think it is unfair? It is, Daichi admitted with a nod of his head that it was unfair. Tough luck. Life isn't fair, but now, I am giving you all a chance. I am extending my trust toward all of you, Daichi said as he extended the mana stone toward Saya. Saya extended her hand toward the mana stone, but before she could grab it, Daichi retreated his hand. Saya immediately looked up, only to find Daichi intently staring at her. Don't squander my trust, Daichi said while intently staring at Saya, who looked kind of nervous, but after a couple of seconds, she nodded her head with a determined look on her face. Daichi gave her a satisfied nod and then he glanced toward the rest of the group who were yet to use the mana stone. What I said was meant for all of you, Daichi said as he gave all of them a hard look. After getting a nod from all of them, Daichi smiled brightly and then he finally handed the mana stone to Saya. Milord, I finished all the preparations, Bella cheered with a bright smile on her face as she showed off the ritual circle to Daichi. Daichi had seen the ritual circle previously when Bella had enslaved Sato Ichika, so it wasn't anything new for him. Thankfully, no esoteric ingredients were needed for the ritual. Bella only needed to draw the ritual circle with her hand and she only needed a drop of her blood and the blood of her future slave for the ritual. Daichi didn't exactly know all the ins and outs of the ritual, but he did know that the slaves won't be able to disobey her commands in any manner. The slaves would still have their own will and they would be able to act even without any commands, but they won't be able to disobey any specific commands given by Bella and they had to follow any specific commands given by Bella, regardless of their personal opinion. Good, start with her, Daichi said, pointing toward the blue-haired woman. Bella eagerly nodded her head and without wasting any time, she kneeled down beside the said woman to collect some of her blood. Daichi noticed that even though his mom had turned the woman into a sack of broken bones, the woman hadn't lost consciousness. The woman had been listening to their conversation, so he decided to start with her. Bella grinned savagely as she collected some blood from the woman. Meanwhile, Seo Hitsuji continued to stare at Bella and Yozora Daichi in complete horror. She couldn't believe what was going to happen to her and no matter how much she tried, she couldn't move her body. Once again she cursed Yozora Kimona and Yozora Daichi inside her mind. Her eyes turned toward the insane woman, who started to speak in some arcane language with a black bowl in her hand. Seo continued to stare in horror as there was nothing else she could do. Death would have been much better instead of what Yozora Daichi had planned for them. Bella stood in between the ritual circle as she continued to recite the chant. After a few seconds, the black bowl in her hands flashed brightly and she stopped her chanting. Bella inclined her head with a massive grin on her face. Daichi was worried that she might end up splitting her face as she kept grinning like that. Bella slowly made her way toward the blue-haired woman, who was staring at Bella with complete horror in her fear. The woman was trying to crawl away from Bella and her pathetic attempt only made Bella giggle in amusement. Stop struggling, pet. Bella will take care of you from now on, pet, Bella said in her baby voice, and then she started to giggle. Without wasting any more time, Bella poured the contents of the bowl inside the blue-haired woman's mouth. To make sure the woman swallowed the contents of the bowl, Bella pressed her hand over the woman's mouth so that she could not spit anything out. The woman struggled for a bit before she ended up swallowing everything. The woman started to cough, but after a bit, she settled down. Bella beamed at the woman and then she started to pat the woman's cheek with a gentle smile on her face. That's a good girl. Bella would take good care of you, pet, Bella said as she continued to pat the woman's cheek, who could only stare at Bella with revulsion and disgust in her eyes. Chapter 86, Torture, 4. You are forbidden from trying to kill yourself, Bella read out the first rule from Koda's smartphone. Even though Bella didn't know what a smartphone was, she could read everything on the screen without any problems. Daichi knew that if he wanted to control these people, then he needed to have a tight leash around their necks. That is why he asked for the smartphone from Koda. Daichi knew that he needed to cover all of his bases. After all, you can never be too careful. You are forbidden from trying to put yourself in deadly situations until and unless we ask you to, Bella recited the second rule. To be honest, Daichi did not know what the blue-haired woman must be feeling, but he could guess that she wasn't pleased. Well, tough luck. You are forbidden from harming our group in any manner, Bella recited the third rule. You are forbidden from betraying our group in any manner, Bella recited the fourth rule. This man is my lord, you are to follow all of his orders, Bella created a rule on her own as she pointed toward Daichi. Daichi swelled in pride. He couldn't have asked for a better summon than Bella. Oh. If you feel something is important then you must inform either myself or my lord as soon as possible, Bella decided to add another rule on her own and it was a perfectly viable rule, so Daichi didn't mind it. From Bella's background, Daichi knew that she used to be a brilliant witch before her own parents broke her mind. That brilliant witch didn't disappear when her mind snapped, it was pretty clear that it was still a part of her and that was one of the scariest parts of Bella. Now that Bella was done with the rules, Daichi turned toward Saya, who no longer had the mana stone in her hand. Are you done? Daichi asked, only to receive a nod from Saya. Good, then can you start creating the healing potions? Daichi requested, and the next moment, Saya placed her hands together. Both of her hands started to glow, and after a few moments, a spherical vial started to form between her hands. Daichi turned toward Jiro, who was already in the process of creating a healing potion. Have you used the stone? Daichi asked, and he only received a nod from the girl. Right now, Kane was using the mana stone. What do you want to tell the others? Yuriko asked as she glanced toward Rika's house from the corner of her eyes. We tell them the truth, but for now the mana stone is going to remain a secret, Daichi said, and Yuriko nodded her head in understanding. Have you used the stone yet? Daichi asked, and Yuriko simply shook her head in denial. Milord, shall I start with the next one? Bella asked eagerly, and after thinking for a bit, Daichi shook his head in denial. Daichi wanted to stabilize the blue-haired woman before starting with the others. He wanted to see how potent the healing potions were before Bella could bind the rest as her slaves. So, what is the plan, son? All of a sudden Kimona asked, who had been silent until now. For whatever reason, Kimona seemed to have a serious look on her face. Daichi has rarely seen her so serious. Regarding Black Label? Daichi asked, only to receive a nod from Kimona. They will be destroyed tonight. How is irrelevant, Daichi said dismissively, making Kimona smile in pride. I was already planning to make my move, but they were much faster than I expected. They came after you as soon as they could. Daichi trailed off while looking at his mom. If we let them be, then they will try again, and they will probably keep trying until I kill the last one of them, Daichi explained, and then he clenched his fists tightly in anger. To be honest, he never expected them to act so quickly, but if he hadn't forced their hand by trying to kill the family, then they wouldn't have made a move. They would have lurked in the shadows, collecting all the information they could before acting. Thankfully, they weren't able to scout them for too long, and they had to act preemptively. If the Black Label was given a chance, they would have created various strategies to neutralize their whole group. Information always played a vital part in fights. Daichi was taken by surprise. He refused to be surprised again, and he refused to let anyone else die. At least someone close to him like Bella. It was a good thing that he could re-summon her, or he would have lost her forever. Even though Daichi couldn't say that he loved Bella, he couldn't imagine living in a world without his Bella. Daichi shook his head to clear his mind. He did not want to think about it. You are planning to attack them tonight? Yuriko gasped in surprise. Yes, is that going to be a problem? Daichi asked in a neutral tone, and Yuriko did not know how to answer the question, so Daichi decided to continue speaking. They are a threat. Not only for me or my mom, but they are also a threat to our whole group. I don't know why they are attacking my mom, but tomorrow they could attack the rest of you too. Daichi had to use all of his willpower to stop himself from sneering. Listen, I understand it is probably too much for you. After all, I am talking about killing humans, not zombies. I am fine if you stay behind and keep an eye on the rest of the group, but I won't stop anyone if they want to come with me, Daichi proclaimed with a righteous look on his face. He would have been nominated for the Oscar if this was a movie. I will accompany you, Kane stepped forward, as did Ran. The other fighters from my group would also join the fight, Kane added. If all of you are going to be so passionate about it, then how can I say no? I will join too. Let me gather the ones who would like to join, Yuriko said with a smile as she walked away toward Rika's house. Daichi smiled softly. His speech had the desired reaction he wanted. Daichi-san, we are done, Jiro called out as she extended a spherical vial filled with glowing green liquid toward Daichi. Chapter 87, Torture, v. It was Daichi who poured the healing potions down the blue-haired woman's throat. The effect was instantaneous. Daichi could clearly see the woman's body mending together. Each healing potions are supposed to refill the HP counter by 20 units within a minute. It might not seem much, but the healing potions were quite amazing. Unfortunately, only one vial of healing potion can be ingested at a time. If more than one healing potions are ingested, then they would lose their potency. Thankfully, a person could ingest a second healing potion as soon as the first healing potion has run its course. The whole group was amazed to see how quickly the blue-haired woman's body was fixing itself. Her bones snapping back to their original places, her muscles mending together, and her skin stitching itself together. The instant heal skill Daichi possessed was a lot different. The skill allowed him to heal instantly. At least, the wolf healed instantly while Daichi was yet to test the skill, so he couldn't say for sure if the skill he possessed was going to retain the effects from the original user or not. It only took the blue-haired woman 2 minutes and 2 healing potions to heal almost completely. "Why you monsters?" Those were the first words that came out of the blue-haired woman's mouth after she regained her ability to speak, and as soon as the words came out of her mouth she winced in pain. "You shouldn't have done that." Daichi pointed dryly, and before the blue-haired woman could regain her bearings, Bella slammed her foot over her gut. Unfortunately for Sayo, she was unable to reflect the damage back to Bella, as it would mean that she was harming her master. The slave bond stopped her from activating the skill. Gah! Sayo grunted in pain as she rolled over to the side with her arms wrapped around her stomach. Even though Sayo was healed, she wasn't healed completely. There were still a lot of bruises and cuts around her body. "You are not being a good pet. You shouldn't refer to Bella and her lord as monsters. That is not a sign of a good pet, and bad pets must be punished." Bella gripped menacingly as she continued to glare at the woman on the ground. Sayo cowered in fear due to the effect of Bella's title, which made Bella smile in satisfaction. "I hope you learn your place quickly. I would hate breaking my own pets," Bella cooed with a caring smile on her face. Sayo spat out some saliva mixed with some blood as she glared at Bella. Even though the woman was afraid of Bella, she wasn't ready to back down. "Fuck you." The woman snarled at Bella and winced in pain. Slowly, Bella's face became frosty and she raised her hand to curse the woman. "You filthy pet." "Crew." Bella snarled in fury, but she was cut off when Daichi pulled her hand. Bella immediately turned around to look at Daichi. The furious look on her face changed into a look of respect and awe. "Not right now, you can play with her later. Her screams might wake up the others, just order her to keep her mouth shut," Daichi said, looking at the woman lying on the ground. Bella turned back toward the blue-haired woman. "Don't say anything until I say so," Bella snarked with a huff. "You were saved due to my lord's generosity, but he said I could play with you later. That is when I will discipline you." Bella started to cackle in mad glee. Meanwhile, Daichi turned toward Jiro and Saya to see if they were already preparing the next set of healing potions or not. Daichi nodded his head in satisfaction when he noticed that the two of them were already halfway done. It takes them 3 minutes to create a healing potion, while it takes them only a minute to create a stamina potion and 2 minutes to create a buffing potion. The healing potion also needed the most mana to create. It needed 20 mana to create a healing potion, and Daichi was glad that even with 15 magic, Saya could create the healing potions. Daichi wanted to conduct some tests, but unfortunately, at this moment, he had more important things to deal with. "Boss, all of us are done," Ran said in a respectful tone as he extended his hand toward Daichi. Ran had the mana stone clutched in his hand. Daichi accepted the mana stone from him, and it was no longer looking like a mana stone. The mana stone has lost almost all of its glow. Right now, it was almost looking like a piece of glass. It was clear that the mana stone has lost almost all of its power. Daichi stared at Ran and raised one of his eyebrows in interest. "Boss?" Daichi questioned in an amused tone. Ran chuckled sheepishly as he rubbed the back of his head. "You are the leader of our group, so you are obviously the boss," Ran said like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Kane growled in irritation and smacked Ran on the back of his head. "Ow!" Ran grumbled while rubbing the back of his head. "Ignore him and thanks for letting us use the mana stone," Kane thanked Daichi genuinely. Now that she had more mana, she could fight for a longer period of time, so she was really grateful. "No need to thank me. Just like I said, I decided to extend my trust toward all of you. Don't disappoint me," Daichi reminded the girl. Kane simply nodded her head in understanding. She knew what type of person Yozora Daichi was, and she also knew that his personality was perfect in a world like this. Strength was everything in this world, and a leader needed to keep control over his group or someone might try a coup. Daichi tossed the mana stone toward Bella, who caught it without any difficulty. Bella already knew what to do with the stone, so she quickly put it inside her purse. When Bella was finally done, Daichi pointed toward the white-haired woman lying on the floor. "She is going to be the most dangerous with her magic nullification skill. Start her ritual to bind her. I need to write down a special rule just for her," Daichi said as he started to think about the extra rule. Chapter 88, Torture, END. "You are forbidden from attempting to break your slave bond." That was the first thing Yuko Sajiri heard as soon as she opened her eyes. At first, Yuko was extremely confused as she did not know what was happening. She didn't even remember where she was. The only thing she knew is that her whole body was aching in pain. You are forbidden from attempting to break anyone else's slave bond. Once again, Yuko heard the said voice, but this time Yuko did feel something shift inside her body. Yuko's eyes grew wide when she finally remembered where she was. Her eyes finally focused on the woman standing over her and her face paled in fear. Bellatrix Black was standing right over her with a sickeningly sweet smile on her face. Yuko clearly remembered that Bellatrix Black was dead. She should be dead. Yuko knew that she had seen the woman die, but here she was, or both of them were dead. The thought had passed her mind, but Yuko quickly scraped the idea. After all, Yozora Daichi was standing right behind Bellatrix Black. True, there was a chance that Yozora Daichi was killed by someone else, but the chances of the three of them appearing in the same spot in the afterlife were kind of low. All of a sudden, something clicked inside Yuko's mind. She clearly remembered Bella saying something to her, but her head was still kind of fuzzy, so she was unable to make any heads or tails of it. That is when Bella started to speak again. Daichi only needed to add 2 extra rules for Yuko. After all, he could not have her trying to cancel the slave bond with her skill, and it wouldn't do him any good if she used her skill to free the other slaves. The rest of the rules Bella recited were exactly the same as the first time. Yuko did try to say something and interrupt Bella, but Bella placed her hand over Yuko's mouth to stop her from saying anything. Yuko was so weak that she wasn't able to fight off Bella. Yuko knew that something really bad was happening to her, but no matter how much she tried, she couldn't find enough strength to get out of Bella's grip. When Bella was finally done reciting all the rules, she stopped covering Yuko's mouth. Magic was all about intent. If Yuko had interrupted her, then she did not know what might have happened. She had been interrupted before during the slave bonding rituals, but no accident ever happened, but Bella decided not to risk it with this woman. After all, none of those people had the ability to cancel magic. You were dead. Those were the first words that came out of Yuko's mouth as soon as she regained the ability to speak again. Bella giggled like a little girl, and after a few moments, her face became completely serious as she malevolently glared at the woman. And you will pay for that. Bella snarled and slapped Yuko, making her wince in pain. Now, don't speak anymore, you titty monster. Let me deal with the rest of you, Bella said as she stood up. Titty monster. Yuko gasped inside her mind. She wanted to scream at Bella for giving her such a disgusting nickname, but much to her horror she found that she couldn't make a sound. She could open and close her mouth completely fine, but no matter how much she tried, no sound came out of her mouth. As Bella walked away from Yuko, Daichi kneeled down beside her with 2 vials filled with glowing green liquid. Yuko tried to move away from Daichi, but once again her shoulder winced in pain and she felt like one of her lungs was on fire. Yuko immediately knew that one of her lungs was punctured, which wasn't surprising when she remembered how Yozora Daichi had stabbed her. These are healing potions, after all, I can't have you dying so easily. Daichi muttered as he opened her mouth with one hand and used his other hand to pour one of the healing potions inside Yuko's mouth. When Yuko noticed that Daichi was about to feed her the potions, she closed her mouth, but she was weaker than Daichi even before awakened his true heritage, and now that he had gained so many extra stats, there was no way that he wouldn't be able to overpower Yuko. Daichi kneeled down beside Yuko so that he could whisper into her ear. He didn't want anyone else to hear what he was saying. Death is too easy for all you. My mom is the most important person to me and all of you tried to kill her. When I am finally done with you guys will be regretting everything decision in life. Daichi whispered into her ear. Yuko stared at Daichi like he was some sort of monster, not that Daichi cared. Just like he said previously, everyone is a hero in their own story and everyone is a villain in someone's story. Only one healing potion was enough for Yuko to heal for the time being. Her health parameter will heal her as time passes, so it was probably fine. When the effect of the healing potion was over, Daichi decided to ask Yuko some questions. After all, he needed all the information he could get before attacking their base. Yuko seemed to be one of the senior members, so Daichi was sure that she would be able to answer all of his questions. What is your name? Daichi asked softly. Yuko wanted to scoff, but much to her horror, she found herself answering the question. My name is Yuko Sajiri, Yuko answered. Daichi nodded his head in understanding. Sajiri-san, you are a member of an organization called the Black Label, right? Daichi asked, only to receive a nod of confirmation from Yuko. Yuko was completely horrified by what was happening. If this continued, then she would end up giving up all the information. Yuko was confident that she would have been able to handle torture, but this was something completely different. Okay. Tell me everything about the base of the Black Label, especially about the defenses and the escape routes, Daichi said with a sweet smile on his face. Yuko finally understood what Daichi had planned for them. He is a bigger monster than Yozora Kimona. Yuko thought internally as she started to reveal all the information regarding the Black Label to Yozora Daichi. Chapter 89, Strike Back, I. Thanks to their cooperation, we know about all of their escape routes along with their defenses, Daichi said with a grin as he pointed toward the 4 people standing at the side. All 4 of them were staring at Daichi, Bella, and Kimona in pure hatred. Daichi was kind of amused, but since they didn't pose any sort of threat to them, he didn't mind their glares. How, I finally found the maps, Shizuka released a tired sigh as she plopped down on a chair. Shizuka raised her hand to wipe off the sweat from her brows, and when she was done taking care of herself, she placed the maps on the table with an extremely pleased look on her face. It must be really hard for her to work with those gigantic tits. Daichi nodded his head as he reached the conclusion. Thank you, Marikoa-san, Daichi thanked Shizuka with a smile on his face. Without saying anything else, Daichi unrolled the maps over the table. Can we really trust them? Kane asked curiously as she glanced toward the members of Black Label. Kane did not know almost anything about the ritual Bella performed, so it was kind of understandable. Technically, yes. They are under Bella's control, so they are under my control, Daichi said as he glanced toward Kane, and Kane simply nodded her head in understanding. It hasn't been long since Kane had joined the group, but she knew that the insane woman was completely devoted to Daichi. If he would ask her to sacrifice herself, then the woman would die with the biggest grin on her face. Daichi was about to start pointing the escape routes on the map, that is when something clicked in his mind. He glanced toward the members of the Black Label and after thinking for a bit, he decided to go along with his idea. Why don't the 4 of you introduce yourselves? Daichi suggested, and even though the 4 of them wanted to curse Daichi, they couldn't. They had to follow through with his suggestion. My name is Yuko Sajiri, the white-haired woman introduced herself with a conflicted look on her face. A gasp was heard from the side. That is why I thought you looked so familiar. Yuriko blurted out, looking completely shocked. What happened to your hair? Yuriko asked in surprise, but all of a sudden, realization dawned on her face. Well, it seems that I never knew you, Yuriko stared at Yuko with a betrayed look on her face. Yuriko couldn't say that they were friends, but they were close acquaintances. Yuko could only stare at Yuriko with a pained look on her face. Just before entering the house, Bella had recited another rule to all of them. You are forbidden from mentioning why you attacked us to anyone until I tell you otherwise. That was the rule Bella recited, so no matter how much they tried, they could defend themselves by telling everyone their side of the story. You know her? Daichi asked Yuriko as he jerked his thumb toward Yuko Sajiri. Yuriko turned toward Daichi with a complicated look on her face. Yes. Well, I thought I knew her, but it is clear that I was wrong. Yuriko muttered with a solemn look on her face as she threw another betrayed look toward Yuko. She is a genius surgeon, probably one of the best surgeons if not the best surgeon of our country, Yuriko proclaimed with a complicated look on her face. Yuko Sajiri is a doctor, she was supposed to protect lives, and here she was going around murdering people. Jackpot. We didn't have any doctors until now, Daichi grinned. When he had asked Yuko about the Black Label, he did not ask anything about her personal life. Yuriko-san, you were saying something about her hair. Daichi asked as he remembered Yuriko saying something about her hair. Yes, she always had brown hair, that is why I wasn't able to identify her, Yuriko answered with a shrug. Daichi smirked and turned toward Yuko. So you dye your hair every time you join your merry band to go around and murder people? Daichi asked in a mocking tone, and the members of the Black Label bristled at the jab. No, whenever I start fighting my hair turns white. I dye my hair brown after every fight, Yuko answered reluctantly. She seemed to be struggling against the bond, but there was not much she could do. Really? Do you know why it happens? Daichi asked, looking slightly excited. No, I do not know, Yuko answered back in a monotone. Daichi was a bit disappointed, but he did not show it on his face. I see. Let's move on, Daichi said, and the blue-haired woman glared at him. Daichi would have been burned to death 100 times over if the woman had the power to burn people with her eyes. Seo Hitsuji, the blue-haired woman ground out. I don't know her personally, but I have seen her at the Mochizuki General Hospital. If I remember correctly, she is the head nurse, Yuriko said with a thoughtful look as she tapped her chin with her finger. Daichi nodded his head in understanding. His mom had said that she had traced them back to the Mochizuki General Hospital, but before she could start investigating them, for whatever reason, the government called off the mission. From Yuko, Daichi already knew that the base of the Black Label was at Mochizuki General Hospital, but he did not know that they worked at the hospital. Erasure Mikami, the boy standing beside Seo, spat out with a disgusted look on his face. Thankfully, Daichi had sent Bella away along with his mom and Roberta. The three of them said that they were feeling hungry, so they left to have a midnight snack. Bella looked slightly reluctant as she did not want to part from her lord. She only left after Daichi told her that he would be fine. Mikoto Kiba, the silver-haired girl, ground out. Yuzora Kimona did not pull any punches when she was dealing with the girl. Daichi had to get her new clothes as the clothes she was wearing were falling off of her skin when she started to heal. Kimona's flames were so hot that her original clothes melted into her skin. The girl had also lost all of her hair. Kimona had cooked her pretty well. Chapter 90, Strike Back, 2. When Bella, Kimona, and Roberta finally returned to the meeting room with some snacks in their hands, so Daichi finally decided to start the meeting. All three of them were going to be involved in the fight, so Daichi them to be present when he started the meeting. These are the escape routes, we need to seal them before we can start the assault, Daichi explained as he pointed toward the 4 points he had marked on the map before everyone arrived. Seal them? Roberta asked with a frown. It might take some time, and if we try to use explosives then there is a high chance that the enemies would be alerted, Roberta added with a frown on her face. But we would need to do something or they will simply escape, Kane pointed out. Are there any sort of traps? Kimona asked as she munched on some fried crackers, not fireworks, it is a type of biscuit. After hearing Kimona's question, Daichi turned toward Yuko. She hadn't mentioned anything about traps, but he hadn't asked anything about traps. Are there any traps? Daichi asked and Yuko gritted her teeth in anger, but she stopped herself from answering. There are several motion sensors installed near the exits. We have also installed a couple of explosives with trip wires. Not only that, we have also installed a thermal camera at each exit, Yuko answered in a defeated tone. She had tried to fight against the curse, but she failed every time. Yuko knew it was a magical spell, so she had tried to use her skill to cancel whatever they had done to her, but her skill won't even activate if she tried to cancel whatever spell Bellatrix Black had used to enslave her. Ah. I wasn't expecting all of that. Quite impressive, I must say, Daichi was quite impressed. These people were extremely serious when it came to security. Milord, I have an idea. You just want to stop anyone from escaping, right? Bella asked and Daichi simply gave her a nod with an unsure look on his face. He had no idea what Bella was planning. You wouldn't mind if they are ripped into pieces? Bella asked in a hopeful tone, she was looking really gleeful. Their survival is not our priority. I think it is completely the opposite, Daichi drawled dryly. He was trying to kill them, so if they ended up getting ripped into pieces then it was a good thing. Oh. Then Bella has the perfect thing in her mind, Bella cooed in a cheerful tone as she clapped her hands while jumping in joy. Daichi wanted to know what she had planned, but he decided that it would be better if he didn't know. All of you are monsters. Erasure snarled in rage. Daichi simply gave him a bored look. Thank you, Daichi retorted dryly. Then you shouldn't have tickled the monsters. Well, I know the saying goes with a dragon, but since you called us monsters. Daichi trailed off with a bored look on his face. That's good and all. Bella will stop anyone from leaving via the escape routes, but how are we going to stop the people from leaving normally? Kimona asked as she raised her delicate eyebrows in question. They only have 3 exits. One in the front, one at the side, and another at the back, and someone might try to jump out of the windows, so to be honest, I have no idea how to stop anyone from leaving if they decided to leave normally. Daichi answered with a scowl on his face. A/N, please remember, everyone has mana inside their body, so the muggle-repelling wards won't be able to stop them. Yuko, Seo, Erasure, and Kiba internally cheered after hearing Daichi's words. Even if a single fighter survived, it would mean that all hope wasn't lost, but before they could celebrate anymore, someone decided to pour cold water over their hopes. Daichi-senpai, I think I have an idea, Kota said nervously as he raised his hand. Daichi wanted to remind Kota that he wasn't in class, but he knew that it probably wouldn't do him any good and it was already past midnight, so they needed to hurry. What do you have in mind? Daichi asked. If I can get to the roof of the Mochizuki General Hospital along with Tawada Haru-san, then I would be able to cover all the sides, Kota explained his plan in a nervous tone. Daichi agreed that it was a good plan, but there was one big glaring hole in his plan. They needed to get on the roof. How are you planning to get on the roof? Daichi asked, and Kota seemed to shrink back in shame and his face turned red in embarrassment. As Daichi said, it wasn't a bad plan, but they needed to get on the roof before they could start the assault, which was kind of impossible. Can you climb ropes? Roberta asked as she glanced at Kota, who after thinking for a bit, shook his head. Why don't we use them? They aren't the best, but from what I have seen they were quite good, Kimona said as she gestured toward the members of the Black Label. Miki Tsurugi. Daichi thought as he remembered the name of the person who had killed his Bella. Daichi had asked Yuko about the person who was using the sniper, and even though she struggled, she ended up revealing the name to Daichi. He was going to pay, but that was going to come later. He knew that all of them were good at handling firearms, but he did not know how good they were at sniping. Are the four of you any good at sniping? Daichi asked curiously as he glanced toward the members of Black Label. Among the four of us, Erasure and Kiba are the best. This time it was Seo who answered the question. I hope the two of you can climb ropes, Daichi said in an amused tone as he looked at Erasure and Kiba. I think it would be poetic if they are killed by their own people, don't you think so, Mom? Daichi asked as he glanced at Kimona from the corner of his eyes. Kimona also chuckled in amusement. Can't argue with that. I wonder what they will think if they are killed by their own, Kimona said in a mocking tone, and then she continued to chuckle. Moments later, she was joined in by Daichi and Bella, and after a few seconds, their chuckles turned into full-blown laughter. Chapter 91, The Last Meeting. So, what exactly happened? Masamiune Mochizuki asked in a neutral tone, but it was pretty clear that the man was barely holding back his anger. The man was completely livid, but he knew that if he lost himself in anger, then he won't be able to do anything. We were watching them as we wanted to gather all the information we could before acting. Even though we were noticed at the beginning, we were able to discover where they were staying, thanks to the car they were using. Miki started to explain everything from the beginning with a grimace on her face. She knew that she had fucked up. Miki had a bandage wrapped around her right shoulder and chest. The bullet fired by Yozora Daichi had penetrated her right shoulder, and since she was resting on her stomach when it happened, the bullet was able to reach her right lung. According to Fiona, she was lucky. If the bullet had hit her left side, then she would have been dead as the bullet would have punctured her heart. After midnight, all of a sudden a small group came out of the house. Since Yozora Kimona, Yozora Daichi, Bellatrix Black, and Roberta were part of the group, we decided to follow them. They made their way toward a nearby house, and after entering the house, they started to torture the residents while laughing. Miki continued to explain the story with an ashamed look on her face. She was supposed to be the voice of reason for the group, and she fucked up. That is when everything went sideways. Erasure wasn't able to watch any longer, and even though we tried to stop him, he left. After a lot of arguments, we decided to support him. We caught up to Erasure, and after making a quick but viable plan, we decided to attack them, Miki explained, and Masamiune continued to listen without showing any reactions on his face. We were slightly late. By the time we reached the house, Yozora Daichi had already killed one of the residents. Surprisingly, they came out of the house on their own. I presume one of them had some sort of sensing ability. Even though they knew we were there, we still decided to attack. Everything was going according to the plan. Miki gritted her teeth in anger. After a few moments, she took a calming breath. We were able to separate Yozora Kimona from her son and Bellatrix Black. Roberta and their other teammate were still in the house, which was good for us. Just as the plan, Yuko was able to cancel Bellatrix Black's barrier with her skill, and I was able to kill her, but that is when everything went wrong. Miki continued to explain. After a couple of minutes, she was finally done with the report. So, you think Yozora Daichi activated some sort of skill after Bellatrix Black was killed, and thanks to the skill he was able to defeat all of you? Masamiune asked with a disbelieving look on his face. He knew that everyone possessed a different type of skill. Someone's skill was strong, while someone's skill was kind of weak. So, it was possible that Yozora Daichi possessed a miraculous skill, but he did not want to believe that. If both the mother and son duo possessed such high-level skills, then he did not want to imagine what kind of chaos the two of them could cause. There was another thing nagging inside his mind. They had proof that Yozora Daichi was a monster just like his adoptive mother, so there was a chance that people like Yozora Daichi and Yozora Kimona were being extremely powerful skills by the Mana Archive. After all, Bellatrix Black also possessed extremely powerful skill or skills. Thankfully, Bellatrix Black was dead. That was the only good news he had received from Miki Tsurugi. One monster was permanently off the street. If his second theory was correct, then they were going to have a lot of monsters on the streets in the future. Their future was dark and bleak if that was the truth, but they were not going to give up. In a fight between good and evil, good will always prevail, no matter how hard the fight was. If they failed by some chance, someone else would pick up where they left. That is how it was supposed to be. Evil wasn't meant to prevail no matter how strong they were. As long as someone was ready to fight for the good, evil could never win. There were always some people who would rise up in face of the darkness, just like he had done. While Masamune who busy thinking about the future, Miki could not find a good answer to Masamune's question no matter how much she tried. I see, you don't have an answer for that. Masamune nodded his in understanding. Neither do I, Masamune added with a solemn look on his face, surprising Miki. Masamune stood up from his chair and stared at the gigantic screen in front of him. To be honest, I don't want to believe Yozora Daichi possesses a skill capable of turning the tide of the battle. That is a scary prospect, but I would be a fool if I don't believe that, Masamune said looking at Yozora Daichi's picture on the screen. Miki. What Anpul Zero had done is extremely stupid. To attack them without any information was nothing but a mistake. I understand that Erasure wanted to save the family and all of you wanted to help him, but you should have seen the bigger picture and now 4 of your team members are probably dead or they are being tortured for information. Masamune turned around and started to glare at Miki dangerously. Miki gulped loudly. I will take responsibility. Miki began to say, but she was cut off by Masamune. No, I can't put all the blame on you. Erasure is the one who is at fault here. Yuko is the team leader, so the blame lies on her shoulder too, Masamune said with a stern look on his face. Miki wanted to argue, but she thought better of it. She had tried her best to stop them, but when Yuko decided to help Erasure, she gave in. Erasure and Yuko needed to learn that there were consequences for their actions or they could never curb away their impulsiveness. What about the rescue mission? Miki asked nervously. There will be no rescue mission until you are healed completely. I think they would be able to hold that long. That would be adequate punishment for them, don't you think? Masamune asked in a cold tone and Miki did not know how to react to that. Chapter 92, Strike Back, 3. So, this is the infamous Mochizuki General Hospital? Daichi asked with a grin as he stared at the massive building a few blocks away from him. It was a rhetorical question, so nobody gave him weird looks. Only Kimona knew that this was probably the first time he was seeing a hospital. Roberta-chan, why don't you take the 3 of them to the roof? Daichi suggested softly. The purple-haired woman simply nodded her head in understanding before gesturing to Wada Haru, Erasure, and Kiba to follow her. Mikami-san, Mikoto-san, the 2 of you are going to follow all of Roberta's orders, and you are forbidden from trying to sabotage the mission in any manner, Daichi ordered the 2 of them with a stoic look on his face. Daichi didn't even look at them while he relayed the order. Roberta-chan, you will be staying with them and we will be pointing 3 lasers at the roof. That is when we will be starting the attack, Daichi added before Roberta could leave with her team. I understand. We will use a flashlight to indicate that we received the signal, Roberta added before leaving. Daichi simply nodded his head in understanding. He really needed to do something about communication, it was getting on his nerves. Maybe, he will find someone with a specific skill related to communication. Sajiri-san, you will be showing Bella all the escape routes, Daichi said as he glanced at Yuko from the corner of his eyes. Bella, return as quickly as possible. We will start the attack after you return, Daichi said as he looked at Bella. Of course, milord, Bella won't disappoint you. Bella declared with a determined look on her face. After that, Bella turned toward Yuko and the determined look on her face transformed into a sneer. Are you waiting for a fucking invitation? Lead me to escape routes, you titty monster. Bella snarled with a cruel look on her face and Yuko, no matter how much Yuko tried to do otherwise, she couldn't. So, she started to lead Bella toward the nearest escape route. Meanwhile, Kimona started to snicker after she heard how Bella was treating Yuko Sajiri. She found it extremely amusing. What happened? Daichi asked curiously and Kimona quickly explained why she was laughing. I have to agree, it is amusing, Daichi agreed in an amused tone. Then he turned toward the last member of the black label he had enslaved. What do you think, Hitsuji-san? Daichi asked. The said woman was staring at the Mochizuki General Hospital with a blank look on her face. Seo's eyes focused on Daichi. Fuck you. Seo spat in disgust. Seo winced in pain, but she didn't care about it. Daichi simply chuckled at her reaction. Come on, be honest, Daichi urged the woman. You are a monster. If we knew about you before then we would have killed you long ago. Seo snarled in disgust, completely ignoring the pain. She knew that she was going to feel some pain after insulting Daichi, but once again she ignored the fact. They might be able to control her body, but she would never give in. You are saying such words, you are going to make me blush. Daichi gave Seo an amused look, who continued to glare at Daichi. Daichi-san, it is a good thing I joined your group. You are extremely cruel, Kane said with a smile, and Daichi happily returned the smile. Only to my enemies. Daichi answered with a grin. If someone else was in his place they would have felt insulted, but Daichi completely agreed with what Kane said. His enemies deserved no mercy, no matter who they were, and attacking his mom would put anyone on top of his shit list. Ha! I am so proud of you, son, Kimona praised Daichi as she ruffled his hair. Daichi's hair was an untamable mess, so he never had to worry about someone ruining his hair. By the way, don't you think having Yuriko here would have been a good thing? Kimen asked curiously as she removed her hand from the top of his head. Since Yuriko already agreed with what Daichi was planning to do, Kimona thought it was a loss that Daichi decided not to bring her here. I think she isn't ready for something like this. She might have agreed with my plan, but would have balked when the time came. We aren't talking about killing zombies or some mutated beasts, we are talking about killing humans, Daichi explained as he stared at his mom. And you think we are ready? Kane asked, and Kimona completely agreed with the girl's question. Her son thought that Yuriko wasn't ready for the mission, and did he really think that these teenagers who were yet to finish their high school were ready for a small genocidal trip? Yes, I do think you are ready because you and your group aren't as naive as Yuriko. She might be twice your age, but she had lived quite a sheltered life. I don't know what she did before marrying Papa Takagi, but I am sure whatever she did, I am sure she gave it up. Not only that, she has a weird sense of morality. She might act like she is getting used to this world, but in a part of her mind, she still believes that someday everything would return to normal, Daichi explained, and everyone stared at him slack-jawed. And how the hell do you know that? Kimona asked as she raised her eyebrows in question. Daichi inclined his head with an unsure look on his face. To be honest, I don't know. I just felt like it. Think of it more like a gut feeling, Daichi nodded his head with a thoughtful look on his face. The feeling has always been there. I mean, not just for her, for everyone. That is why I never paid attention to most of the women even when they were trying so hard to get my attention. Daichi explained with a shrug. Kimona nodded her head in understanding. Yes, she had seen it too. I see. Well, if you think she isn't ready then I will not complain, after all, you are the leader, Kimona shrugged with a grin as once again she started to ruffle her son's hair with a caring look in her eyes. Chapter 93, Strike Back, 4. Where are you leading me? Bella questioned suspiciously as Yuko led her through a subway station. This was the first time Bella saw something like a subway station, so she was obviously suspicious of the woman. This is a subway station, this station leads to one of the escape routes. Yuko felt disgusted at herself for betraying the black label, it was her family, but no matter how much she struggled it didn't bore her any fruits. You people have underground trains? Bella asked in an excited tone. Even though the train lines were slightly different than what she had seen, she was still able to recognize the train lines pretty easily. Yuko gave Bella a weird look. Yes, we have subways throughout the country, Yuko answered as she continued to stare at Bella's face to see her reaction. Yuko finally jumped down over the tracks from the platform. Stay clear from the tracks, if you come in contact with them then you will get electrocuted, Yuko blurted out. Yuko cursed herself for warning Bella. When she realized that Bella probably did not know anything about the subways, she was hoping for Bella to touch the tracks and end up electrocuted. Unfortunately for Yuko, she was trying to harm Bella by not providing her with the necessary information, so the rule which entailed that she was forbidden from trying to cause Bella any harm activated itself and she ended up blurting out the warning. Bella looked at Yuko suspiciously as she jumped down from the platform. That warning was pretty late. Bella glared at Yuko, which made the white-haired woman flinch back in fear. I will forgive you this time since my lord asked me to hurry or you would have been punished, Bella threatened Yuko. For a moment Yuko thought if she should try to poison Bella's mind against Daichi, but she decided to probe a bit before trying anything. It wouldn't do her any good if Bella ended up killing her. I know she is stronger than me, but why do I feel so afraid whenever she glares at me? Is it some sort of skill? Yuko wondered inside her mind as she continued to walk down the tracks followed by Bella. So, where are you from? I know you are a foreigner, but your Japanese is extremely fluent, Yuko complimented Bella. She was trying to fish out some information from Bella if possible and Yuko decided to start with an easy topic as she wanted Bella to lower her guard. At first, Bella stared at Yuko for a few moments, before she finally realized what Yuko was trying to do. Bella might be insane, but she wasn't stupid. She had killed hundreds of Death Eaters and Valdipofter. Not only that, she had killed hundreds of Aurors and she needed a lot more than sheer luck to achieve all of that. Bella simply smirked as she decided to play the game with Yuko. Originally I am Briton and thank you, pet. My lord is a native of this country, so I needed to know Japanese, Bella answered with a small giggle. Yuko finally stopped walking and then she pointed toward a steel blast door several meters away from them. That is the exit. If we go close then we will be caught by the motion sensors and the thermal camera, Yuko explained even though she did not want to. I see. So, if anyone uses this route, then they will be coming through that door, right? Bella asked in her baby voice and Yuko simply nodded her head. Without saying anything more, Bella conjured herself a dagger and sliced her palm with the dagger, much to Yuko's surprise. She really wanted to see what Bella was doing and she was also surprised by the fact that Bella could conjure weapons out of thin air. Bella started to make a ritual circle with her blood. After a few seconds, Bella was finally done and Yuko thought the ritual circle looked something similar to what she had seen in movies, comics, or animes when someone was trying to summon a devil or a demon. Surely she not planning to summon devils or demons, right? Yuko tried to reassure herself. She wanted the black label to survive, and if Bella was really summoning a demon or devil, then the chances of someone surviving were pretty low. Yuko knew that Daichi, Bella, and Kimona were insanely strong and there was nobody in Black Label who could face any of them head-on. That is why Yozora Daichi will not start the attack without Bellatrix. Maybe I should try to delay her. Yuko wondered as she continued to stare at Bella. Bella finally started to chant in some unknown language and the ritual circle started to glow with a golden glimmer. The halo of a three-headed dog appeared over the ritual circle, but Bella did not stop. She continued to chant. Fuck me. She is really trying to summon a devil or a demon. Yuko thought with a horrified look on her face. After a few moments, Bella finally stopped chanting, and the ritual circle burst forth in a golden glow. The light was so bright that Yuko had to cover her eyes. She did not know if the golden glow contained some heat or not, but she was hoping that the thermal camera picked up the golden glow due to some heat. At least, the Black Lail would be alerted about the imminent attack. When the light finally subsided, Yuko found 4 massive dogs. Wolves were standing in front of Bella forming a line. She did not know what these things were, but she could feel shivers running down her spine. The wolves turned their heads in her direction and all 4 of them immediately bared their large canines. Yuko subconsciously took a step back, but before the wolves could lunge at her, Bella started to speak in some unrecognizable language. After a couple of seconds, Bella finally stopped speaking to the wolves and turned toward Yuko. There are hellhounds, freshly summoned out of hell. You see, they are born hungry, you wouldn't mind them if they feast on your former colleagues, do you? Bella asked in an amused tone and Yuko could only stare at Bella in complete horror. After watching Yuko's reaction, Bella started to cackle in mad glee. Chapter 94, Strike Back, END. After nearly an hour, Bella finally returned, looking extremely pissed and enraged. Good. You are finally here. I am kind of getting bored. Daichi exclaimed cheerfully as he stood up from the ground and dusted off his pants followed by his hands. I am done, my lord. Nobody will be escaping through the escaping routes, Bella revealed and started to cackle madly. Daichi simply raised his brows. He knew that Bella wasn't sane and he also knew that she loved murdering and torturing people. Apparently, she also loved dismembering humans. Bella was looking extremely pleased with whatever she had done, so she must have done something extremely dreadful. This made Daichi curious, he really wanted to know what Bella had done. What have you done, Bella? Daichi asked curiously. The others were also looking curious. To be honest, they weren't expecting Bella to return so soon. I summoned 4 hellhounds and left one of them at each escape route, Bella explained with a cheerful look on her face. Bella looked at Daichi like she was waiting to be praised. Daichi did not have any idea what these hellhounds were or what they were capable of, but wasn't 1 hellhound per escape route way too little? Bella, don't you think 1 per escape route is way too little? Daichi asked with a confused look on his face. Bella seemed to be extremely confident in her hellhounds, so it confused him slightly. Yuko would never say it out loud, but she also thought that Bella should have used more than 1 hellhound to guard 1 escape route. After all, no matter how fast or strong these hellhounds were, 1 lucky shot was enough to kill them. At first, Yuko was afraid that nobody was going to survive, but when she saw that only 1 hellhound stayed back to guard the escape route, while the others followed herself and Bella. She almost released a relieved sigh. Yes, it was still going to be dangerous, but there was still a chance that someone would be able to kill one of the hellhounds and they will be able to escape. Meanwhile, Bella beamed at Daichi with a bright smile on her face. "I am glad you asked, milord." Bella cheered as she clapped her hands like a little girl. Bella's eyes gleamed with madness, and Daichi already knew whatever he was going to hear wasn't going to be good from the perspective of a Black Label member. "When I first started summoning hellhounds, there is a fact I didn't know about them. It wasn't mentioned anywhere," Bella started to explain mysteriously, her eyes filled with a gleam of insanity. Yuko gulped loudly in trepidation. She didn't like where this was going. "Sometime down the road, I finally discovered that whenever a hellhound is killed, 2 hellhounds are born in its place. It is just like when you cut off a hydra's head," Bella cackled in mad glee. Daichi had to admit, hellhounds were especially dangerous, especially under someone like Bella's command. "They are very messy eaters and they are born hungry, so we should be worrying about how to clean the places," Bella exclaimed, and then she continued to cackle. Daichi had to admit, Bella was really fucked in the head. "That is quite disturbing," Kane mumbled, and Koda looked somewhat green after hearing Bella's explanation. "You monster. They are innocents." For the first time, Yuko lost her cool and screamed at Bella. She had insulted Bella and Daichi before, but her reaction wasn't so extreme until now. "Innocents?" Bella asked with a confused look on her face as she finally stopped cackling. "That's even better. They are going to be splattered everywhere. It is going to be so beautiful," Bella exclaimed cheerfully. Daichi noticed that both Seo and Yuko were hatefully glaring at Bella. "That's enough. Bella, you have done a good job," Daichi said as he made his way toward Bella. Daichi started to pat Bella, and the insane woman simply leaned toward Daichi, so that she could enjoy the head pats even better. "I think we have waited enough, let's send the signal," Daichi said, looking at Koda. Daichi pulled out his handgun and turned on the laser. Koda also did that same, followed by Siko. Daichi had asked Siko to carry a handgun, just in case, and he had also decided to do the same. You can never know when you might end up needing a gun and not having it. After a few seconds, a flashlight was pointed in their direction. When the flashlight finally stopped blinking, Daichi decided to head inside. "Bella, Kane-san, the 2 of you are going to be with me," Daichi said as he made his way toward the hospital. Daichi didn't want to part with Bella because of his job requirements. "Sajiri-san, you will be accompanying my mom along with Ran-san," Daichi said while looking at Ran, but he did glance toward Yuko for a bit to see her reaction. "Hitsuji-san, you will be accompanying Siko along with Koda-san," Daichi said, and only to receive 2 nods from Siko and Koda while Seo continued to glare at him like he had killed her puppy. Daichi might be a bad person, but he would never kick a puppy. That was simply too heartless. "Mom, you be entering the building through the main gate, Siko, you will start from the secondary entrance while I will enter from the entrance at the back. We will move upstairs after clearing the ground floor and we will keep moving upstairs until the building is cleared," Daichi explained the plan. "Any questions?" Daichi asked as a courtesy, but to be honest, he wasn't expecting someone to ask questions. "What about the members of Black Label? Their base is underground, right?" Siko asked with a small frown on her face. "I have thought about it and it will be fine." Daichi shrugged off dismissively. Since it was clear that Daichi had already planned something about it, Kimona and Siko decided to drop the matter. There were only 2 entrances for the ground floor where the base of Black Label was situated, and both of the entrances were at the back of the building. So, Daichi had decided to seal the entrances with the help of Bella. Daichi wasn't planning to let anyone live to see the next day. So, the 9 of them made their way toward the Mochizuki General Hospital, and when they finally arrived in front of the building, they separated into 3 equal groups, and Daichi told his mom to wait 5 minutes before she could start while he told Siko to wait for 3 minutes. Chapter 95, Massacre, I. Daichi was about to enter the Mochizuki General Hospital through the rear entrance, but he froze when a loud explosion was heard, rattling the whole building. Daichi checked his watch to see if 5 minutes have already passed or not, but just like he expected, his mom had jumped the gun. "Come on, Mom. I know you were excited, but I asked you to wait 5 minutes for a reason." Daichi shook his head. Daichi pulled out his handgun as he wanted to finish the riffraff as quickly as possible. Since his mom was already causing a ruckus at the front, most of the fighters would be heading in that direction. Meanwhile, Daichi would use this chance to seal the underground entrances with Bella's help. As soon as Daichi entered the building, he found 2 armed guards running down the hall. They were probably heading towards his mom, completely forgetting about the rear entrance. Daichi simply pointed the gun at their back and pulled the trigger. Daichi knew he could handle guns, but he was never this good. He only needed to fire twice to nail both the targets. The guards were at least 15 meters away from him and he popped both of them at the back of their heads. It might be something related to his slaughter instinct skill. That was his best guess. Living deity, 10%. All of your physical status parameters are permanently increased by 3 points. Your mana and magic parameters are permanently increased by 100 points. Shit. Why? So killing increases the percentage of my living deity race? Daichi wondered in complete bewilderment. Is this something like race change mission or something? Daichi wondered, just like any other kid, he had also played some RPG games and he was quite familiar with the term. I haven't killed any zombies on the way, so it is possible that killing unlocks my true heritage, but what is my true heritage and why is it related to killing? Daichi had a lot of questions swirling inside his mind, but he knew that he wasn't going to receive an answer to any of the questions at this moment. It frustrated Daichi to no end. After all, he was really hoping that he wasn't some random god's child, who decided to drop him on this planet to protect him. That plot was extremely overrated and he really wanted to avoid such an outcome. I never thought that I would be so okay with this. Kane mumbled with a disbelieving look on her face. You could leave if you want. I won't hold it against you. Even adults are going to balk at what I am going to do. Daichi said as he stopped to look at Kane. Kane simply shook her head. No. It is fine. I was simply surprised that I am completely comfortable even after watching a couple of people getting murdered, Kane explained when she noticed that Daichi was looking at her curiously. Well, I love watching people die. It makes me feel amazing. Bella quipped from the side. Daichi simply turned toward her and smiled. Not everyone can be as awesome as you, Bella, Daichi said as he started to walk down the hall. Daichi kneeled down beside the deceased guards to pick up their guns and ammo. After all, it would be a waste to leave them here and since these guys weren't going to get up even as zombies, it was probably fine. Do you want one? Daichi asked Kane, who frantically shook her head in denial. There is a chance that I might end up shooting myself in the foot. Kane grumbled grumpily. She really wanted to have a gun. Daichi has offered a gun back at the base, but she had denied that offer too. Even though she wanted a gun, she wasn't confident enough to hold a gun. I will need to ask either Kota or Yuriko to show everyone how to use guns. Maybe I can ask Chiba too. She also knows how to use guns due to her training, Daichi mused as he looked at Kane for a bit. For now, Daichi decided to keep the guns for himself. He was fine with giving one to Kane, but there was no way that he would give one to Bella. She was already dangerous enough, but at least she knew what she was doing when it came to magic. Let's keep moving, Daichi called out loudly as he started to walk down the hall. Milord, where are all the people? Bella asked curiously as she quickly caught up to Daichi. Daichi inclined his head with a contemplative look on his face. I think most of the Black Label members are downstairs while the rest of the staff are probably upstairs. Daichi mused with a thoughtful look on his face as he rubbed his chin. I also wonder how nobody noticed our arrival at the hospital. Daichi questioned himself. I made sure to avoid the CCTV cameras. Don't tell me that they decided to still depend on CCTVs instead of depending on humans. Daichi guessed and it would be kind of amusing if that is what really has happened. How I wanted to kill people so badly. Bella whined as she childishly stomped her foot on the floor. Daichi simply snickered at the sight. If I remember correctly, one of the entrances to the ground floor should be here, Daichi wondered aloud while staring at an empty wall. Daichi raised his gun and pulled the trigger. A metallic ding was heard as the bullet itself into the wall and a smile bloomed on Daichi's face. He had found one of the entrances. Bella, seal it, Daichi ordered and after thinking for a bit, Bella jabbed her hands at the entrance, creating a thick marble slab in front of the entrance. Bella continued to wave her hands rhythmically, creating several pillars behind the slab to support the slab, so that nobody could easily break through the marble slab. I think that would be enough, Daichi called out as he continued to stare at Bella's handiwork in complete awe. Even if someone ended up using an RPG, there was no way that they would be able to remove the slab. Well, it was an insult to call it a slab anymore. It was more like a marble block. Now, that one of the entrances was sealed, Daichi along with Bella and Kane started to make his way toward where the second entrance was supposed to be. The end.